The security footage didn't lie. Frame by frame, timestamp by timestamp, the evidence was irrefutable. A janitor, a nobody in a gray uniform, systematically accessing restricted areas, inserting devices into company systems, downloading classified data 3 days before the biggest product launch in Titan Core Innovations history. Avery Sinclair's hand trembled slightly as she paused the video, her jaw set with the kind of cold fury that had built empires and destroyed careers. She'd trusted her instincts to build a billion-dollar company by 32. Now those same instincts screamed betrayal. The man on screen was about to learn what happened when you crossed the youngest self-made CEO in Silicon Valley. She wasn't calling security. She wasn't calling lawyers. She was going to follow him herself and watch his entire world collapse. If you want to see how a single night of surveillance shattered everything a powerful CEO thought she knew about success, dignity, and what truly makes someone invaluable, stay with me until the end. Drop a like and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The blue glow of multiple monitors cast sharp shadows across Avery Sinclair's face as she reviewed the security footage for the 7th time that evening. Her corner office on the 43rd floor of Titan Core Innovations headquarters overlooked the San Francisco skyline, a vista of ambition and achievement she'd clawed her way toward since graduating MIT at 20. Now, at 32, she commanded a tech empire valued at $3 billion, employed over 2,000 people, and stood 72 hours away from a product launch that would either cement her legacy or destroy everything she'd built. The man in the grainy footage threatened all of it. Malik Carter, age 30, night shift janitor, hired 8 months ago through a staffing agency. Background check? Clean. References? Adequate. Performance reviews? Unremarkable. He emptied trash bins, mopped floors, and maintained the invisible infrastructure that kept a gleaming corporate tower functioning after the executives went home. Except Malik Carter did considerably more than that. Avery's finger hovered over the pause button as she watched him exit the elevator on the restricted 14th floor at 2:47 a.m. His gray uniform blended with the shadows, his movements economical and purposeful. He glanced toward the security camera. She'd watched this moment dozens of times, and something in his expression made her pause. Not guilt, not nervousness. Something else entirely. Calculation. He moved to the R&D wing, used what appeared to be a cloned access card to bypass the biometric lock, and disappeared into the server room. The internal cameras captured him for the next 17 minutes. He sat at a terminal reserved for senior architects, his fingers moving across the keyboard with the fluid confidence of someone intimately familiar with complex systems. He inserted a flash drive, downloaded files, accessed source code repositories that contained the algorithmic heart of Titan Core's revolutionary new platform. "Son of a bitch," Avery muttered, her voice sharp in the empty office. This wasn't opportunistic theft. This was systematic corporate espionage, the kind of operation that required planning, technical expertise, and access to resources far beyond what a janitor should possess. Someone had planted him. A competitor, probably. Maybe Chen Technologies, who'd been sniffing around their patent portfolio for months, or Vertex Systems, whose CEO still nursed a grudge from an acquisition battle 3 years ago. Avery's phone buzzed. Marcus Webb, her chief security officer, his text direct and urgent. "Reviewed the footage. This is bad, very bad. We need to involve law enforcement immediately." She typed back, "No police. Not yet." "Avery, he's accessing. I know what he's accessing. I want to know why, and who sent him." A pause, then, "You're not planning something reckless." "I'm planning to protect this company. Stand by." Avery stood, her reflection ghosting across the dark window. She'd built Titan Core from a graduate thesis and $20,000 of maxed-out credit cards. She'd survived the dot-com crash aftermath, the 2008 recession, the pandemic chaos, and 3 separate attempts by larger corporations to acquire and gut her company. She'd sacrificed relationships, sleep, and any semblance of work-life balance to prove that a young woman could dominate in an industry designed to exclude her. She wasn't about to let a janitor destroy it all. Checking her watch, 10:47 p.m., she calculated quickly. Malik's shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. If the pattern held, he'd finish his assigned floors by 2 a.m., then make his unauthorized excursion to restricted areas. She had time. Avery changed in her private bathroom, trading her tailored suit for dark jeans, a black turtleneck, and comfortable boots. She pulled her blonde hair into a tight ponytail and grabbed her keys. Her Tesla sat in the executive garage, but she bypassed it for the nondescript Honda Civic she kept for occasions requiring discretion. The drive to Titan Corps' headquarters took 12 minutes at this hour. She parked in a visitor spot with a clear view of the employee entrance, killed the engine, and settled in to wait. The October night carried the damp chill characteristic of San Francisco autumns. Avery cracked the window slightly, her breath forming brief clouds in the car's interior. The streetlights cast yellow pools across the empty sidewalk. An occasional car passed, taillights disappearing into the urban darkness. At 11:23 p.m., a silver Toyota Camry pulled into the employee lot. Avery straightened, her hand instinctively reaching for her phone to start recording. Malik Carter emerged from the driver's seat, and Avery got her first real look at him beyond grainy security footage. He stood perhaps 6'1", with the lean build of someone who stayed active without the sculpted vanity of gym culture. His movements carried an economy of motion that suggested awareness, maybe even training. He wore the standard gray janitor's uniform, a backpack slung over one shoulder. But it was his face that caught her attention. Even from this distance, she could see the tiredness etched around his eyes. The kind of bone-deep exhaustion that came from carrying more weight than sleep could remedy. Yet his posture remained straight, dignified. A man who refused to be diminished by circumstances. He locked his car, an older model, she noted, probably 10 years old but meticulously maintained, and headed toward the employee entrance. He moved with purpose, but without hurry, a man confident in his right to be exactly where he was. Avery waited 5 minutes before following. She used her executive override to enter through a side door, avoiding the main security desk. The building's after-hours lighting created pockets of shadow and illumination, transforming familiar corridors into something slightly alien. She knew the cleaning crew's rotation. Malik would start on the upper floors, working his way down through the night. She positioned herself in an unused conference room on the 38th floor, the door cracked just enough to observe without being seen. For the next 2 hours, she watched him work. And what she saw confused her. Malik approached his tasks with a precision that bordered on ritualistic. He didn't just empty trash bins. He sorted recyclables, wiped down surfaces with methodical care, straightened chairs into perfect alignment. He moved through offices with a respect for other people's spaces that surprised her. In the executive suite, she watched him pause at a framed photo on someone's desk, a family picture, and a brief, painful expression crossed his face before he carefully cleaned around it and moved on. This wasn't the behavior of a corporate spy. This was someone who took pride in work most people considered beneath notice. At 1:47 a.m., Malik finished the 38th floor and headed toward the elevators. Avery's pulse quickened. This was it. The moment he'd deviate from his assigned duties and reveal his true purpose. But he didn't head to the 14th floor. Instead, he descended to the parking garage, pushed his cleaning cart to a storage closet, and emerged with just his backpack. He walked to his car with the same unhurried purpose, started the engine, and pulled out of the lot. Avery sat frozen in confusion for exactly 3 seconds before scrambling to her own vehicle. She followed him through the empty streets of San Francisco, maintaining a careful distance. The city at this hour belonged to shift workers, insomniacs, and people with nowhere else to go. Traffic lights cycled through their patterns for an audience of ghosts. Malik drove southeast, away from the gleaming financial district and tech campuses, into neighborhoods where gentrification hadn't yet steamrolled the old working-class character. The buildings grew shorter, older. Chain-link fences replaced manicured landscaping. The streetlights became more sporadic. He pulled into the parking lot of a building that made Avery's heart sink with its sheer, visible need. The West Side Community Center occupied a former elementary school, its 1960s architecture showing every one of its 60-plus years. Cracked concrete, faded paint, windows covered with security bars. A hand-painted sign announced open gym night, Thursdays, and after-school programs Monday to Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Malik parked, grabbed his backpack, and approached a side door. He produced a key, his own key, and let himself in. Avery sat in her car, her mind racing through possibilities. A meeting place, a drop point for stolen data, a front for something darker. She waited 10 minutes, then approached the building carefully. The side door Malik had used was now locked, but she circled to the front. Through a window, she saw light spilling from what looked like a classroom down a hallway. The front door was unlocked. Avery slipped inside, her footsteps silent on worn linoleum. The building smelled of industrial cleaner, old books, and the indefinable scent of institutions dedicated to serving people with more need than resources. Bulletin boards displayed children's artwork, community announcements, and flyers for GED classes. She moved toward the light, her back against the wall, every instinct from her self-defense classes engaged. As she approached the open classroom door, she heard voices, young voices, and then Malik's voice, patient and clear. "No, Marcus, you're thinking about it backwards. The loop doesn't execute after the condition is met. It executes while the condition is true. See the difference?" Avery risked a glance around the doorframe and felt her entire understanding of reality tilt on its axis. The classroom contained 8 teenagers, ranging from perhaps 13 to 17, seated at a mismatched collection of desks. Each had a laptop in front of them, older models, but functional. At the front of the room, Malik stood before a whiteboard covered in code, a dry erase marker in his hand. He wasn't stealing corporate secrets. He was teaching programming. "So, if I want it to run 5 times, a young girl said, her fingers poised over her keyboard, I need to set the counter to start at 0 and the condition to be less than 5. "Exactly, Destiny." Malik's smile was genuine, transforming his tired face into something warmer. "Try it now." Avery watched, transfixed, as the girl typed rapidly. A moment later, her screen displayed output, and she let out a triumphant laugh. "I did it! Mr. Carter, I actually did it." "You did more than that," Malik said quietly. "You understood it. That's the difference between copying code and being a programmer. Anyone can copy. Understanding means you can create." A boy in the back raised his hand. "Mr. Carter, when you worked at Nexus, did you write code like this every day?" Avery's breath caught. Nexus. She knew that name. A major systems architecture firm that had collapsed 5 years ago amid scandal and bankruptcy. "Sometimes," Malik replied carefully, "but I also did what you're doing now. Learned, made mistakes, fixed them. That process never stops, no matter how advanced you get." "My cousin says programming jobs are all going to India, and AI is going to replace everyone anyway," another student challenged. "Why are we even learning this?" Malik set down his marker and leaned against his desk, his expression serious. "Your cousin is both right and wrong. Yes, some jobs moved overseas. Yes, AI is changing the field, but technology isn't going away. It's becoming more important, not less. And the people who understand how systems work, who can think logically and solve complex problems, those people will always be valuable. The question isn't whether there will be opportunities. The question is whether you'll be prepared when they come." He gestured to the laptops. "These machines? I pulled them from Titan Core's recycling. They were going to be destroyed because the company upgraded to newer models. But there's nothing wrong with them. They work fine for learning. Someone decided they were worthless, but I see potential." Malik's eyes moved across the classroom, meeting each student's gaze. "Same way people make assumptions about you, about this neighborhood, about what's possible for kids from West Side. But I know something they don't. I know that intelligence, creativity, and potential exist everywhere. Opportunity doesn't. That's what I'm trying to change." The silence that followed carried weight. Avery felt it pressing against her chest, making it difficult to breathe. "Now," Malik continued, his tone shifting back to instructional, "let's talk about conditional statements. If-else logic is fundamental to everything you'll do in programming. Think of it like decision-making in real life." Avery slowly backed away from the door, her mind reeling. She made it outside before the full impact hit her. She'd followed a man she assumed was a criminal, ready to destroy his life, protect her company, and preserve her empire. Instead, she'd discovered someone doing more good in a forgotten classroom than her entire corporate philanthropy budget had accomplished in years. The flash drives, the after-hours access, The downloaded files. Recycling records, she realized with crystalline clarity. He was accessing the IT asset disposal logs to see what equipment was being discarded. The infiltration of secure areas was him retrieving computers that her company literally threw away. Avery sat in her car, her hands gripping the steering wheel, and forced herself to think past the immediate shock. Who was Malik Carter? Really? She pulled out her phone and began searching. Nexsys Corporation collapsed in 2020 following revelations about falsified safety testing in medical device software. 3 executives went to prison. The company dissolved. But there was another name in the news archives. Malik Carter, senior systems architect at Nexsys, testified before a federal grand jury regarding safety protocol violations. She found another article. Carter's testimony proved crucial in federal prosecution. Despite engineering concerns raised internally for months, management pressured technical staff to approve faulty code to meet investor deadlines. And another. Industry sources suggest Carter's whistleblower status has made him virtually unemployable in the tech sector. Several former colleagues report being pressured by industry contacts to avoid hiring him. The picture assembled itself with brutal clarity. Malik hadn't lost his career through incompetence or criminality. He'd lost it by refusing to compromise on ethics when lives were at stake. The industry had blacklisted him not for being wrong, but for being right in a way that threatened powerful interests. Avery's phone buzzed. Marcus again. Any update? We need to make a decision about this situation. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. The smart business decision was obvious. Fire Malik. Quietly. Avoid the liability of an employee with access he shouldn't have, regardless of his intentions. Protect the company. Move on. But something stopped her. She thought about the teenagers in that classroom, the careful dignity with which Malik approached work that society deemed menial, the equipment her company discarded being transformed into tools of opportunity. She thought about the product they were launching in 3 days. TitanCore's new platform promised to revolutionize how mid-sized businesses managed complex data operations. They'd marketed it as democratizing technology, making enterprise-level tools accessible to organizations that couldn't afford custom solutions. Pretty words for investors, marketing language designed to justify premium pricing. But in that classroom, she'd seen actual democratization, real accessibility. A man with nothing giving everything to kids the system had already written off. Avery didn't respond to Marcus. Instead, she started a different search, this time digging deeper into Malik's background. Birth certificate. Oakland, California. Public school education. Full scholarship to UC Berkeley's computer science program. Graduated summa cum laude. Hired immediately by Nexsys at a salary that would have made most new graduates weep with gratitude. Then she found the obituary. Sarah Michelle Carter, beloved wife and mother, passed away January 15, 2021, after a courageous battle with leukemia. She is survived by her husband, Malik Carter, and daughter, Zara Carter. The timeline clicked into place. Wife dies. Husband blows the whistle on corporate malfeasance. Industry blackballs him. Career evaporates. Medical bills from a wife's cancer treatment probably decimated any savings. And somehow, impossibly, instead of becoming bitter or broken, Malik Carter chose to spend his nights teaching kids to code. Avery realized she was crying. She wiped her eyes roughly, angry at the emotion. She'd built a reputation on cold logic and hard decisions. Sentiment was a luxury she couldn't afford. But this wasn't sentiment. This was recognition of something she'd lost track of in her climb to the top. Purpose beyond profit. Her phone buzzed again. This time, not Marcus. Her head of R&D, Dana, her message laced with barely controlled panic. Avery, we have a serious problem with the platform. Stress testing is showing cascade failures at scale. We need you here now. The launch. 72 hours away. 6 months of development. 18 months of marketing. Advance orders worth $40 million. Stock price partially baked on successful deployment. Avery started her car and headed back to TitanCore headquarters, her mind splitting between crisis management and the man she'd been ready to destroy hours earlier. The engineering team was assembled in the main conference room when she arrived at 4:30 a.m., their faces showing the unique combination of exhaustion and adrenaline that came with critical failures on impossible deadlines. Dana pulled up diagnostic logs on the main screen. The integration layer is breaking down under concurrent load. When we simulate real-world usage patterns with multiple clients accessing simultaneous data streams, the whole system starts choking. Response times degrade, then cascade into complete failure. "Show me the architecture map," Avery commanded. For the next hour, they dissected the problem. The platform's core functionality worked beautifully in isolated testing. But when stressed with the chaotic, unpredictable patterns of actual business usage, hidden vulnerabilities emerged. It was like discovering a bridge could hold stationary weight perfectly, but would collapse when cars actually drove across it. "We can push the launch," someone suggested quietly. "Absolutely not." Avery's response was immediate. "We push, we lose momentum. Competitors flood the gap, clients lose confidence. We launch on schedule or we don't launch at all." "Then we need to strip features," Dana said. "Reduce the scope to what we know works. Make it less ambitious." Which defeats the entire value proposition. We're selling comprehensive integration. A partial solution is worthless. The engineers exchanged glances, the kind of look that communicated shared understanding of an unpleasant truth. They were trapped between impossible options. Avery stared at the architectural diagram spreading across multiple screens. The code represented thousands of hours of work, millions of dollars in investment. And somewhere in those layers of complexity lurked a flaw they couldn't isolate. An image flashed in her mind. Malik at a whiteboard, explaining loops to teenagers with patient clarity. "The integration layer," she said slowly. "Dana, who designed the original architecture for that component?" Dana checked her notes. "We acquired the core framework from the Nexus asset auction. It was part of their medical device platform. Our team adapted it for business applications." Nexus, Avery repeated, the company that Malik had worked for. The company he'd helped destroy by insisting on safety over shortcuts. She made a decision that would either save her company or confirm everyone's worst assumptions about her judgment. "I need to bring someone in," she said. "A consultant. He's familiar with the original architecture." "Avery, we have the best team in the industry here," Dana protested. "What consultant could possibly—" "Trust me, I'll have him here by noon." She left before anyone could argue, already calculating how to approach this impossible conversation. Malik's personnel file listed his address in the Outer Mission District. Avery drove there as dawn painted the sky in shades of pink and orange, the city slowly waking around her. His building was a modest 3-story apartment complex, its stucco facade showing signs of deferred maintenance but overall respectability. She found his unit on the second floor and knocked, then realized with a glance at her watch that it was barely 6 a.m. She was about to leave when the door opened. Malik stood there in sweatpants and a faded Stanford t-shirt, obviously just woken. His eyes widened in recognition. Even janitors knew what the CEO looked like. And confusion, then something that looked like resigned acceptance. "Miss Sinclair," he said quietly, "I suppose this is about the computers." "It's about a lot of things," Avery replied. "Can I come in? I promise this isn't what you think." He hesitated, glanced back into his apartment, then nodded. "Give me 1 second." He disappeared briefly, and Avery heard a young girl's voice. "Dad? Who's at the door?" "Just work stuff, baby. Go back to sleep." When Malik returned, he stepped into the hallway and partially closed the door behind him. Protecting his daughter, Avery realized, from whatever confrontation he assumed was coming. "I'm not going to apologize for the computers," he said, his voice low but firm. "They were going to be destroyed. I made sure every serial number was properly logged out of inventory. I didn't steal anything. I just repurposed waste." "I know," Avery said. "I followed you last night. I saw the community center. I saw what you're doing." Malik's expression shifted through several emotions: surprise, anger, resignation. "So you were spying on me." "I was protecting my company from what I thought was corporate espionage. I was wrong. Very wrong." She took a breath. "I need your help." "My help." His tone suggested he was waiting for the punchline. "Our platform is failing stress testing. We launch in 3 days, and we have a critical flaw in the integration layer, the architecture that came from Nexus. You know that system. You helped build it. Understanding dawned in Malik's eyes. And now you need the janitor to save your billion-dollar launch. The bitterness in his voice was earned, and Avery accepted it. I need one of the best systems architects in the industry to save a project that's about to collapse. I need someone who understands that particular code base intimately. And yes, I'm asking the man I was ready to destroy 12 hours ago. I understand the irony, but I'm asking anyway. Why would I help you? Malik asked. Why would I help Titan Core or any of you? I tried to do the right thing once. It cost me my career, my reputation, everything I'd built. The industry made it clear what happens to people who prioritize integrity over profit. Because the platform we're building actually could help people, Avery said. Small businesses, nonprofits, community organizations, they need these tools but can't afford custom solutions. If we fail, they're the ones who lose opportunity. Not me, not Titan Core, the people you care about. Malik studied her face, his expression unreadable. You know what I find interesting about this conversation? What? You haven't offered me money. You haven't threatened me. You're making an appeal to principle. He laughed, but without humor. The people who destroyed my career were always very good at invoking principle when they needed something, usually right before they screwed whoever was naive enough to believe them. The apartment door opened slightly, and a young girl peered out. She was perhaps 8 or 9, with her father's eyes and a cascade of braids held back by a purple headband. She looked at Avery with open curiosity. Dad, is everything okay? Everything's fine, Zara. Go back to bed, sweetheart. I'm not tired anymore. Can I have cereal? Malik's entire demeanor softened. Yeah, baby. Give me 5 minutes. Hi, Zara said to Avery. Are you my dad's boss? Something like that, Avery replied. My dad's really smart. He teaches me coding. I made a program that draws stars in different colors. That's wonderful, Avery said, and meant it. That's really advanced for your age. My dad says anyone can learn if someone takes time to teach them right. Zara looked up at Malik with complete adoration. He's the best teacher ever. Inside, Zara, Malik said gently. Now. The girl obeyed, closing the door reluctantly. Malik turned back to Avery, and something in his expression had changed. My daughter thinks I clean buildings because I love it, he said quietly. I've never told her what I used to do, what I lost. She thinks this is what I chose, and maybe she's right. Maybe I did choose this. Chose to be there for her, to have regular hours, to teach kids who need someone to believe in them. But it wasn't the choice I imagined making with my life. He crossed his arms, a defensive gesture that made him look younger and more vulnerable. If I help you, I need guarantees. Name them. First, the community center program continues. The computer donations don't stop. In fact, they expand. I want a formal partnership where Titan Core commits to providing refurbished equipment, software licenses, maybe even volunteer mentors. Done, Avery said immediately. Second, if I fix your platform, I don't want a job. I don't want to be rehabilitated or paraded around as your redemption story. I want independence. A consulting contract, maybe, but I maintain control of my time and my choices. Agreed. And third, he paused, choosing words carefully. If I help you and the platform succeeds, I want you to remember something. What's that? That the person you almost dismissed, the janitor you assumed was stealing from you, the man whose access card you were probably planning to revoke, he saved you. I want you to remember that the next time you make assumptions about someone's value based on their job title or their circumstances, I want you to look at every person in your company from the top floor to the basement and ask yourself what you might be missing. Avery felt the weight of that request. It wasn't about money or recognition. It was about seeing people, really seeing them. I promise, she said. I already started. Malik nodded slowly. I need to get Zara ready for school and arrange for my neighbor to pick her up this afternoon. Give me 2 hours. I'll meet you at Titan Core at 9. Thank you, Avery said. Truly. Don't thank me yet. I don't even know if I can fix this. It's been 5 years since I touched that code base. You'll figure it out. The best people always do. As Avery walked back to her car, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years: hope mixed with humility. She'd built an empire by being smarter, tougher, more ruthless than her competition. But in one night, a janitor had taught her that maybe the most important skill wasn't domination. It was recognition, the ability to see value where others saw invisibility, to find brilliance in unexpected places, to understand that worth and position weren't the same thing. She had 72 hours to save her company's future. But maybe, just maybe, she'd started something more important than any product launch. She'd started to remember why any of it mattered in the first place. Malik Carter walked through the gleaming lobby of Titan Core Innovations at precisely 9 o'clock, carrying a worn laptop bag that had seen better days and wearing clothes that marked him as definitively not belonging in this temple of corporate success. His jeans were clean but faded, his button-down shirt pressed but clearly off the rack, his sneakers functional rather than fashionable. The security guard at the desk looked up with practiced assessment, the kind that sorted people into categories before conscious thought engaged. "Deliveries go to the loading dock, buddy," the guard said, not unkindly, but with absolute certainty about where Malik belonged. "I'm here to see Avery Sinclair. She's expecting me." The guard's eyebrows rose slightly. "You have an appointment with the CEO?" "Yes." "Name?" "Malik Carter." The guard checked his computer, and his expression shifted from skepticism to confusion to professional neutrality in the space of 3 seconds. "Right, okay. She's in the executive conference room, 43rd floor. You'll need a visitor badge." The elevator ride up felt longer than it was. Malik watched the floor numbers climb, each digit representing a world further from the one he'd inhabited for the past 5 years. The last time he'd walked into a situation like this, he'd been wearing a tailored suit and carrying the confidence of someone who belonged. Now he felt like an imposter, except the real deception was everyone else assuming he didn't have the right to be here. The doors opened onto the executive floor, all glass walls and minimalist design, the kind of space that proclaimed its own importance through sheer expense. A young woman in a sharp blazer intercepted him immediately. "Mr. Carter, I'm Jessica, Miss Sinclair's assistant. She's waiting for you. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "I'm fine, thank you." She led him to a conference room where Avery stood before a wall of monitors displaying code architecture, diagnostic logs, and what appeared to be real-time stress testing results. The room held perhaps a dozen people, all of whom turned to stare as Malik entered. He recognized the look on their faces. Confusion. Curiosity. The beginning edge of resentment at whatever this was. A few probably recognized him from his janitorial shifts, and he could see them trying to reconcile the man who emptied their trash with someone invited to their crisis meeting. "Everyone," Avery said, her voice cutting through the ambient tension, "this is Malik Carter. He's going to help us solve our integration layer problem." "Malik, this is Dana Kim, head of R&D, Thomas Park, lead systems engineer, Rachel Morrison, senior architect." "Wait," Thomas interrupted. "Isn't he the night janitor?" The silence that followed carried the weight of every assumption people made about worth, capability, and who deserved to sit at what tables. "He's a senior systems architect who helped design the original Nexus framework our platform is built on," Avery said, her tone making it clear the topic was closed. "Dana, bring him up to speed." Dana stepped forward, her expression carefully professional, but her eyes sharp with assessment. She was younger than Malik, probably early 30s, with the focused intensity of someone who'd fought for every inch of respect she'd earned. The integration layer handles simultaneous data streams from multiple clients. In isolation, it works perfectly. Under concurrent load, we're seeing cascade failures. Response times degrade exponentially until the whole system locks up. She pulled up diagnostic data. "We've isolated it to the memory allocation protocols, but we can't find the actual flaw. The code passes every static analysis test. It's only under dynamic stress that it breaks." Malik studied the screens, his mind automatically parsing the architecture. He could see it now, the bones of the system he'd helped build 6 years ago, adapted and modified, but still fundamentally recognizable. "Can I see the original Nexus source code?" he asked. "The unmodified version you acquired?" "Why?" Thomas asked. "We've already improved significantly on the original architecture. Whatever issues existed then, we fixed." "Humor me." Dana hesitated, then nodded to someone at a laptop. Pull up the legacy files. As the original code populated the screens, Malik felt memory and recognition collide. This was his work, or part of it. He could see his own architectural decisions, the elegant solutions he'd been proud of, but also something else that made his stomach tighten. There, he said, pointing to a specific module. The memory allocation cascade. I flagged this as a critical issue during development. It works fine under steady-state load, but when you get unpredictable concurrent access patterns, it creates a feedback loop that compounds exponentially. That can't be right, Rachel said, stepping closer. We stress-tested this module extensively. It passed every benchmark. You tested it with simulated concurrent load, didn't you? Randomized but still following predictable patterns? Of course, that's standard practice. Malik shook his head. Real-world usage isn't predictable. It's chaotic. Clients don't access systems in neat, randomized patterns. They cluster around specific times, specific functions, creating load spikes that your simulations don't replicate. He moved to the whiteboard, grabbed a marker, and began sketching. The original design assumed a certain distribution of access requests. But when you get multiple clients hammering the same resource simultaneously, the allocation protocol tries to queue requests in a way that creates dependencies. Request A waits for resource 1. Request B also needs resource 1, so it waits for A. But request B also needs resource 2, which request C is waiting for, and request C needs resource 3 that request A is holding. You create a circular dependency chain that the system can't resolve, so it just keeps allocating memory to track the waiting requests until everything crashes. The room had gone very quiet. Dana stared at the whiteboard, then back at the code on the screens. That's actually consistent with what we're seeing, she said slowly. But if you knew this was an issue, why was it in the original architecture? Because I was overruled, Malik replied, his voice flat. I proposed a different allocation scheme that would prevent the cascade, but it required more memory overhead up front. Management decided the elegant solution, the one that looked better on paper, was worth the risk. They figured real-world usage wouldn't trigger the edge case frequently enough to matter. For a medical device platform? Thomas asked, incredulous. They accepted that risk on systems that monitored patient health? You understand now why I testified against them. Avery had been watching silently, but now she spoke. Can you fix it? Malik turned from the whiteboard. Maybe. The solution I proposed 6 years ago would still work, but implementing it requires restructuring significant portions of the integration layer. It's not a patch. It's a fundamental redesign. How long? Dana asked. For me alone? 2 weeks minimum, maybe 3. We have 3 days, Avery said. Then you need to delay the launch. Not an option. Walk me through what you need. Malik looked around the room at the assembled engineers, seeing a mixture of skepticism, curiosity, and nascent respect. I need your best people working directly with me. I need complete access to the codebase and testing environments. I need authority to make architectural decisions without running them through approval chains. And I need everyone in this room to trust that I know what I'm doing, even when it seems like I'm tearing apart systems that took months to build. Done, Avery said immediately. Dana, assign your top 5 engineers to Malik's team. Everyone else maintains current operations but stays available if needed. Malik has full access and final authority on any decisions related to the integration layer. Questions? Thomas raised his hand. Yeah, if we're betting the company on this, I want to know, why should we trust you? No offense, but you've been out of the field for 5 years. Technology moves fast. What you knew then might not apply now. It was a fair question, and Malik appreciated the directness. You shouldn't trust me because of my credentials or my history. You should trust me because in the next hour, I'm going to prove I understand this system better than anyone else in this room. And if I can't do that, you should absolutely throw me out and find another solution. He turned back to the whiteboard and began writing. The cascade failure starts in the allocation queue manager. Dana, pull up the source code for that module. I'm going to walk you through exactly what's happening, line by line, and then I'm going to show you how to fix it. For the next 90 minutes, Malik dissected the system with surgical precision. He explained the original design intent, where the modifications had introduced new vulnerabilities, and how the interaction between legacy code and new features created the perfect storm for failure. He wrote code on the whiteboard, fielded technical questions, and demonstrated a depth of understanding that gradually shifted the room's energy from skepticism to engagement. Dana was the first to fully engage, asking sharp questions that showed she understood both the problem and Malik's proposed solutions. Rachel followed, pushing back on specific implementation details until Malik refined his approach. Even Thomas, the initial skeptic, started contributing ideas. By 11 o'clock, they had a plan. It was ambitious, verging on insane given the timeline, but it was possible. "We'll need to work in shifts," Dana said, already mentally organizing the effort. 3 teams, 8-hour rotations. Malik, you'll need to rotate between teams to maintain continuity. "I'll work straight through," Malik said. "Sleep when it's done." "That's not sustainable for 3 days." "I did longer stretches during the Nexus crisis. I'll manage." Avery intervened. "Malik, I need you sharp, not running on fumes. Dana's right. We'll set up a rotation where you get minimum 6 hours sleep per day. Non-negotiable." He wanted to argue, but recognized the wisdom. "Fine, but I'll need complete focus during working hours. No meetings about the meetings. No status updates for executives. Just work." "Agreed. Jessica will set up a war room for your team. Everything you need, including food, coffee, whatever. You don't leave that floor unless absolutely necessary." As the meeting broke up and engineers scattered to prepare for the grueling days ahead, Avery approached Malik quietly. "Thank you for doing this. Don't thank me until we see if it works. Even if it doesn't, you showed up. That matters." Malik studied her face, looking for the calculation, the angle, the hidden agenda. But what he saw surprised him. Genuine respect, maybe even the beginning of something like shame. "Why did you really come to my apartment this morning?" he asked. "You could have had security escort me out, fired me, called lawyers. Instead, you asked for help. Why?" Avery was quiet for a moment. "Because last night, I watched you teach kids who society has already written off. I saw you treat discarded equipment as valuable. I saw dignity in work that most people consider beneath notice. And I realized that maybe the person I needed to solve an impossible problem wasn't someone who'd never failed. Maybe I needed someone who'd lost everything and kept going anyway." "Pretty speech." "It's the truth. I built this company by being smarter and more ruthless than everyone else. But ruthless doesn't solve everything. Sometimes you need someone who gives a damn about more than winning." Before Malik could respond, Jessica appeared in the doorway. "Ms. Sinclair, the legal team needs you for the vendor contract review, and you have the board call at noon. Tell legal I'll be there in 10 minutes. Reschedule the board call." "They're not going to like that." "They'll survive." "Malik, go get started. Dana will show you the war room." As Avery left to deal with the mundane realities of running a corporation, Malik followed Dana to a commandeered conference room that would serve as their operational center for the next 70 hours. Someone had already set up additional monitors, whiteboards covering every available wall, and a coffee station that looked like it could fuel a small army. "So," Dana said as they entered, "want to tell me what really happened at Nexus? I read the news coverage, but I'd rather hear it from you." Malik set down his laptop bag and turned to face her. "What do you want to know?" "Why you testified. You had to know it would destroy your career." "Because people died," Malik said simply. "Not directly, not in some dramatic way, but the medical monitoring systems we built had flaws that could have killed patients. Management knew. I reported it through proper channels. They ignored it, pressured us to ship anyway, and when I wouldn't sign off on the safety certification, they threatened my job. So you went to the feds." "So I did what the law required, and what basic human decency required, and I'd do it again." Dana nodded slowly. "Good, because I need to know that the person I'm about to bet my professional reputation on actually gives a damn about getting it right." "I do." "Then let's get to work." The engineering team assembled over the next hour, 5 of Titan Core's best developers joining Malik in the war room. They were young, talented, and carried the confidence of people who'd succeeded at everything they'd attempted. Malik recognized the type. He'd been one of them once. He started by laying out the complete architecture on the whiteboards, creating a visual map of the entire system. Then he divided the work into discrete modules, assigning each engineer specific responsibilities. The key is that we're not just patching, he explained. We're redesigning the allocation protocol from the ground up. That means we have to maintain backward compatibility with existing modules while completely changing how memory requests are queued and resolved. Thomas, you're on the queue manager. Rachel, you're handling the resource allocation pools. Chen, dependency resolution is yours. Priya, you're managing the testing framework. I need you to build stress tests that replicate actual chaotic usage patterns, not just randomized simulations. Marcus, you're on integration, making sure our changes don't break anything else. What are you doing? Thomas asked. Coordinating, reviewing every piece of code before it gets committed, and rebuilding the core allocation algorithm. Questions? Priya raised her hand. The testing framework you're describing doesn't exist. Building it from scratch would take weeks. Then we cheat. I'll give you the specifications for the testing protocols I designed at Nexus. They were built for exactly this kind of cascade analysis. You'll need to adapt them to Titan Core's environment, but the fundamental logic is sound. You remember the specifications from 6 years ago? Chen asked skeptically. I wrote them. Yeah, I remember. Over the next 6 hours, the war room transformed into a crucible of intense, focused effort. Malik moved between engineers, reviewing code, catching errors, suggesting optimizations. He worked with a precision that surprised them, not because of technical skill, they'd expected that, but because of how he balanced pushing hard with recognizing when someone needed a break. At 5 o'clock, Malik looked around the room and saw engineers hunched over keyboards, eyes starting to glaze with fatigue. Everyone stop, he said. Commit what you have, document your progress, and take a 1-hour break. Mandatory. We're on a deadline, Thomas protested. We can't afford... Exhausted brains make stupid mistakes, and stupid mistakes cost more time than breaks. 1 hour. Eat something real, not just coffee and snacks. Walk around. Call your families. Then come back ready to work another 5 hours before the night shift takes over. Dana, who'd been working alongside them, caught Malik's eye and nodded approval. As the engineers filed out, she approached him. You're good at this, she said. Managing people, I mean, not just the technical work. I had good mentors once. They taught me that brilliant code written by burned-out developers is still broken code. You hungry? I'm thinking of ordering Thai for everyone. I need to make a phone call first. My daughter gets out of school soon. Use my office, privacy and quiet. Malik accepted gratefully and found a quiet corner to call his neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who'd agreed to pick up Zara from school. Hello? Mrs. Chen? It's Malik. I'm running late at work. Would you mind? Already got her, baby. She's eating a snack and doing homework. You take your time. I know you're doing something important. You're a lifesaver. I'll pick her up tonight, probably around 9 if that's okay. We'll be up. Zara's teaching me about computer programming. Did you know she can make stars appear on the screen in different colors? Despite the pressure, Malik smiled. She's pretty proud of that program. She's proud of her daddy, too. She told me you're helping a big company solve a big problem. Says you're the smartest person she knows. Something in Malik's chest tightened. She said that? All the time, honey. All the time. Now you go do your work. We're fine here. When Malik returned to the war room, food had arrived and the engineers were eating while reviewing each other's code on the monitors. The atmosphere had shifted from initial skepticism to something approaching camaraderie. Okay, Thomas said between bites of pad thai. I have to ask, how did you end up as a janitor at Titan Core after all this? The question hung in the air. Malik could feel everyone's attention shift to him, the curiosity they'd been too professional to voice directly. Needed a job, he said simply. After Nexus collapsed and the industry blackballed me, I sent out 200 resumes, got 3 responses. 2 were from recruiters who wanted to waste my time. 1 was from a staffing agency that placed janitors. I had a daughter to feed and medical bills from my wife's cancer treatment. Pride doesn't pay rent. That's insane, Rachel said. You have the skills to work anywhere. Skills aren't enough when your name is associated with destroying a company, even when you did it for the right reasons. The tech industry is smaller than you think. People talk. Nobody wants to hire the whistleblower because maybe next time they'll be the ones getting whistled on. So you just gave up on engineering? Chen asked. I redirected, Malik corrected. Found other ways to use my skills. The community center kids don't care about my employment history. They just care that someone's willing to teach them. And honestly, some nights, watching a teenager's face light up when they finally understand recursion feels better than any code review I participated in at Nexus. Dana set down her food. For what it's worth, what you did at Nexus was right. The fact that the industry punished you for it is a stain on all of us. Appreciate that. And for what it's also worth, Thomas added, you're handling this crisis better than anyone I've ever worked with. You actually know what you're doing instead of just pretending you do, which puts you ahead of about half the tech executives I've met. Malik laughed despite himself. Low bar, but I'll take it. They worked until 10 o'clock when the night shift team arrived to take over. Malik spent an hour briefing them on the architecture changes, the specific challenges, and where to focus their efforts. Then he gathered his things, feeling the exhaustion starting to creep in. Avery appeared as he was packing his laptop. How's it going? Better than expected. The team is solid. If we maintain this pace, we might actually pull it off. Might? There's still a lot of unknowns. We won't know if the redesign actually works until we can stress test it under real load conditions, and that won't happen until tomorrow night at the earliest. But the foundations are good. That's more optimism than I expected. Get some sleep, Malik. Tomorrow's going to be harder. He nodded and headed out, but before leaving the building, he made a detour to the executive floor's observation deck, a glass-walled space overlooking the city. At this hour, San Francisco glittered below him, a constellation of lights representing millions of lives, dreams, struggles. He pulled out his phone and called Mrs. Chen. I'm on my way to get Zara. She's asleep on the couch, waited up as long as she could, but third grade wears you out. Want me to wake her? No, I'll carry her. Be there in 20 minutes. When he arrived at Mrs. Chen's apartment, his daughter was indeed asleep, curled around a stuffed giraffe she'd had since she was 3. She still wore her school clothes, and there was a smudge of what looked like marker on her cheek. She was drawing computer pictures, Mrs. Chen whispered, very serious about getting the colors right. Malik carefully lifted Zara, and she stirred slightly, her eyes opening halfway. Dad? Hey, baby, time to go home. Did you save the company? Working on it? You will. You're really smart. She fell back asleep against his shoulder as he carried her to the car. Driving home through the quiet streets, Malik thought about the surreal nature of the past 36 hours. 2 days ago, he'd been invisible, a man in a gray uniform who existed in the margins of other people's important lives. Now he was leading a crisis response team at a billion-dollar company, his skills suddenly valued again. But what resonated most wasn't the professional validation. It was Avery's question from that morning, the one about remembering. Remembering that worth and position weren't the same thing. That the person emptying trash might be capable of solving problems executives couldn't. That assumptions about value often said more about the person making them than the person being judged. As he carried Zara up to their apartment and tucked her into bed, Malik made his own promise. Whatever happened with Titan Core's launch, whether they succeeded or failed, he would keep teaching those kids at the community center. He would keep showing them that opportunity wasn't about where you started. It was about who believed in you along the way, and whether you believed in yourself enough to keep going when everything said to quit. His phone buzzed with a text from Dana. Night shift is making good progress. Architecture is holding together. You might have actually solved this impossible problem. Get some sleep, genius. Malik smiled and set his alarm for 6 o'clock. 4 hours of sleep, then back to the war room. 2 more days of controlled chaos. 2 more days of proving that dismissing someone based on their current circumstances was the kind of mistake that could cost everything. He fell asleep thinking about cascade failures, memory allocation protocols, and his daughter's absolute certainty that he was the smartest person she knew. And somewhere in the space between consciousness and dreams, he recognized something profound. The tech industry had tried to break him, had succeeded for a while, but they'd underestimated something crucial. You couldn't break someone who'd found purpose beyond recognition, meaning beyond status, and worth beyond anyone's ability to diminish it. Tomorrow, he'd show them exactly what that looked like. The alarm pierced through 4 hours of sleep that felt like 4 minutes. Malik silenced it before it could wake Zara and lay in the darkness of his bedroom, his mind already racing through the architectural challenges waiting at Titan Core. His body protested, muscles stiff, eyes gritty with exhaustion, but he pushed himself upright anyway. Champions, his old mentor used to say, were built in the hours when everyone else chose comfort over commitment. He showered, dressed in the same clothes from yesterday because they were clean enough, and checked on Zara. She slept peacefully, her braids spread across the pillow like a crown. He left a note on the kitchen table. "Morning, baby. Cereal in the cabinet, juice in the fridge. Mrs. Chen will walk you to school. Love you more than all the code in the world. Dad." The drive to Titan Core through pre-dawn San Francisco felt surreal, the city caught in that liminal space between night's surrender and morning's arrival. Street cleaners worked their routes. Early shift workers waited at bus stops. The world continued its routines while Malik raced against a deadline that could resurrect a career he'd accepted as dead. The war room blazed with light when he arrived at 6:30. The night shift team looked haggard but triumphant, their monitors displaying progress that made Malik's chest tighten with cautious hope. "Tell me you broke something," he said, setting down his coffee. "Tell me you found a critical flaw I missed so I can fix it now instead of discovering it during launch." Yuki, the night shift lead, grinned with the manic energy of someone running on caffeine and adrenaline. "We tried. Spent 4 hours deliberately stress testing every edge case we could imagine. The new allocation protocol holds. We're seeing consistent response times even under chaotic concurrent load." "Show me." For the next hour, Malik reviewed the night shift's work with meticulous attention, looking for the hidden vulnerabilities that always lurked in complex systems. But the code was clean. More than clean. It was elegant, the kind of architecture that solved problems before they could manifest. Dana arrived at 7:15, looking like she'd actually slept, her expression sharp and focused. "Status? Night shift killed it," Malik reported. "The core allocation protocol is solid. Today we focus on integration testing, making sure our changes don't break anything else in the platform. And if they do, then we fix it, fast." The day shift engineers filtered in over the next 30 minutes, and Malik briefed them on priorities. The atmosphere had changed from yesterday's cautious skepticism to focused intensity. They'd seen the architecture work. Now they believed. Thomas pulled up the integration testing dashboard. "We've got 17 major subsystems that interface with the allocation layer. If we test sequentially, it'll take 30 hours minimum. We don't have 30 hours. Then we parallel test," Malik said. "Divide into pairs. Each pair takes responsibility for specific subsystems. Run your tests simultaneously. But here's the critical part. You need to coordinate timing, so we're hitting the system from multiple angles at once, replicating real-world chaos. Thomas and Rachel, you're on the API gateway. Chen and Priya, client authentication protocols. Marcus, you're with me on the data pipeline." They scattered to their assignments, and for the next 8 hours the war room hummed with controlled urgency. Malik moved between teams, reviewing test results, catching integration conflicts before they cascaded into larger problems. His mind operated in that heightened state where exhaustion transformed into clarity, where every piece of the system existed in sharp relief. At noon, Jessica appeared with lunch, sandwiches, salads, fruit that actually looked fresh. "Ms. Sinclair wanted to make sure you're eating real food, not just surviving on coffee and stress." "Tell her we appreciate it," Dana said, grabbing a sandwich without looking away from her monitor. "Also tell her we're making excellent progress. The integration tests are passing across the board." She'll want specifics. "Then tell her the specifics are that Malik's redesign is working exactly as promised, and if we maintain this pace, we'll be ready for final stress testing by tonight." Jessica left, and Malik caught Dana watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "What?" he asked. "Just thinking about how differently this could have gone. If Avery had made the obvious choice, fired you, brought in some expensive consulting firm, delayed the launch, we'd be having very different conversations right now. Maybe the expensive consultants would have fixed it faster. Doubtful. They wouldn't have known the original architecture's DNA the way you do. And they definitely wouldn't have worked with this kind of intensity. You're not doing this for money or recognition. That changes everything about how you approach the problem." Before Malik could respond, alarms started blaring from Thomas's workstation. Every monitor in the room flashed red. What happened? Malik was at Thomas's side in 3 strides. The API gateway just crashed. Complete system failure. All client connections dropped simultaneously. Malik's stomach dropped as he scanned the error logs cascading across the screen. This was exactly the nightmare scenario, a catastrophic failure during integration testing 2 days before launch. Everyone stop what you're doing, he commanded. Freeze all current tests. Thomas, show me exactly what you were doing when it crashed. Thomas's hands shook slightly as he pulled up his testing protocol. We were simulating high-volume API requests with irregular timing patterns. Everything was fine, response time stable, then suddenly the whole gateway just collapsed. Malik studied the logs, his mind racing through possibilities. The error signatures looked familiar, but not from anything in his redesign. This was something else. Something older. Dana, pull up the API gateway source code, the original implementation, not our modifications. As the code populated the monitors, Malik felt recognition click into place. There. See that timeout handling routine? What about it? Rachel asked, leaning in. It's got a race condition. When you get concurrent timeout events, which happens under irregular load patterns, the cleanup routine tries to access the same resource simultaneously. Our allocation protocol is working perfectly. The gateway's existing code is what's broken. But we've been using that gateway code for months, Chen protested. Why would it suddenly fail now? Because our new allocation protocol is faster and more efficient. It's processing requests so quickly that it's exposing timing vulnerabilities in other systems that were previously masked by slower performance. We fixed one problem and revealed another. The implications settled over the room like a physical weight. They'd solved the original crisis only to discover a new one, and this time they couldn't blame it on architecture Malik had designed years ago. Can we fix it? Dana's voice was steady, but Malik could hear the tension underneath. Yes, but it's going to take time we don't have. How much time? Malik pulled up the problematic code section and began analyzing its structure. The race condition is in the cleanup routine. We need to implement proper mutex locking to prevent concurrent access. It's not technically complex, but it touches critical infrastructure. If we get it wrong, we could introduce even worse problems. If we don't get it done, we don't launch, Thomas said flatly. So we get it done. Tell us what you need. For the next 6 hours, they attacked the API gateway problem with surgical precision. Malik redesigned the timeout handling routine while Rachel and Thomas implemented the changes. Chen built new test cases specifically targeting race conditions. Priya expanded the stress testing framework to catch similar timing vulnerabilities in other systems. At 7 o'clock, Malik's phone buzzed. Mrs. Chen. Zara is asking about you. Should I tell her you're working late again? He stepped into the hallway to call her. Mrs. Chen, I'm so sorry. This is taking longer than expected. Don't apologize, honey. That child understands her daddy is doing important work. But she made you a picture. She wants to know if she can bring it to your office tomorrow. Malik felt his throat tighten. Tell her yes. Absolutely yes. I'll arrange it with the company. You sound tired, baby. Are you taking care of yourself? Doing my best. I'll pick her up late again tonight if that's okay. Maybe 9:30? We'll be here. Go save that company. When Malik returned to the war room, Avery had arrived and was reviewing the progress with Dana. She looked up as he entered, her expression unreadable. I heard we found a new problem. Found it and fixing it, Malik confirmed. The race condition in the gateway timeout routine. We'll have it resolved by midnight. That confident? That determined. Avery studied him for a long moment. Your daughter called my assistant, asked if she could visit you at work tomorrow. I'm sorry, I told Mrs. Chen it was okay, but I should have cleared it with you first. Don't apologize. I told Jessica to arrange it. Zara can visit during lunch. I'd like to meet the girl who inspires this kind of work ethic. Something in Avery's tone made Malik look at her more carefully. She seemed different from the driven executive he'd met 2 days ago. Softer somehow, but not weak. More human. Thank you, he said simply. How are you holding up? Dana says you've been running on 4 hours of sleep. I'm fine. Malik, her voice carried gentle insistence. I need you functional, not heroic. You're no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion. I'll sleep when it's done. That's what I'm afraid of. She turned to Dana. Make sure he takes a real break. 2 hours minimum. That's an order from the CEO. Before Malik could protest, Avery left, and Dana folded her arms with an expression that suggested arguing would be futile. You heard the boss. 2 hours. There's a quiet room on this floor with a couch. Go. We're in the middle of critical, and we'll still be in the middle of it in 2 hours. The team knows what to do. Trust us to keep working while you recharge. Malik wanted to argue but recognized the wisdom. He was making mistakes, small ones, the kind that compounded into disasters if left unchecked. His mind felt like a computer with too many processes running simultaneously, everything slowing to dangerous levels. The quiet room was exactly as described, small, dark, with a surprisingly comfortable couch. Malik set an alarm for 2 hours and lay down, certain he wouldn't actually sleep. He was unconscious in 30 seconds. The alarm woke him to darkness and momentary disorientation. He checked his phone. 9:45. He'd slept through the alarm's first ring, and someone had added another 90 minutes. A note was taped to the door. You needed it. Gateway fix is implemented and testing clean. Dana. Malik returned to the war room to find the night shift back in control, the day shift team having gone home for rest. Yuki looked up with a tired smile. Sleeping Beauty awakens. Your team kicked ass today. The gateway is solid, and we're running final integration tests now. Everything's passing. Malik reviewed the work with growing amazement. They'd not only fixed the race condition, but had gone further, identifying and resolving 3 other potential timing vulnerabilities. The code was better than he'd hoped. This is excellent work, he said. Seriously excellent. We had a good teacher. Yuki pulled up a simulation dashboard. Want to see something beautiful? This is the complete system under maximum projected load. Response times are not just stable, they're better than the original specifications promised. You didn't just fix the problem, you made it better than it was supposed to be. Malik watched the metrics scroll across the screen, each data point confirming what seemed impossible 2 days ago. They'd pulled it off, the redesign worked, the integration held, the platform was ready. Run it again, he said. Maximum load, chaos patterns, everything we've got. I want to break it before launch day does. For the next 4 hours, they threw everything at the system. Simulated server failures, network disruptions, massive concurrent access spikes, the kind of worst-case scenarios that would have destroyed the original architecture. The platform held. Every time. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Malik finally let himself believe it. They'd done it. Against impossible odds, with an insane deadline, they'd solved a problem that should have taken months. He texted Dana. We're ready. Final stress testing complete. All systems stable. Her response came immediately. I'm not asleep either. Couldn't stop thinking about it. You're sure? As sure as I can be without real-world deployment. The architecture is solid. Then get some real sleep. Tomorrow we present to the executive team, and you need to be able to explain what we did and why it works. Malik drove home through the empty streets, his mind too wired to feel the exhaustion his body carried. When he arrived at his apartment building, Mrs. Chen was sitting on the front steps, wrapped in a cardigan despite the mild night. What are you doing out here? Malik asked, suddenly worried. Is Zara okay? That child is fine, sleeping like an angel upstairs in your apartment. I put her to bed in her own room 2 hours ago. Mrs. Chen stood, brushing off her sweater. I'm out here waiting for you because I wanted to tell you something. What's that? I've lived in this building for 37 years. I've watched people come and go, struggle and succeed, fight and surrender, and I've learned to recognize something important. She put a hand on Malik's arm. I can tell when someone is about to change their life. There's an energy, a shift. You've had it these past few days. I'm just helping with a project, temporary consulting work. Baby, I'm old, not blind. This is bigger than a project. This is you remembering who you are, what you're capable of. And I wanted you to hear from someone who cares about you. Don't let them make you forget again. Whatever happens with this company, with this work, you hold on to the truth that you're worth more than they ever recognized. Malik felt unexpected emotion rise in his chest. Thank you, Mrs. Chen, for everything. for watching Zara, for believing in us. That's what neighbors do. Now go get some sleep. Your daughter wants to see where her brilliant father works tomorrow, and you need to be awake enough to show her." In his apartment, Malik checked on Zara, deeply asleep, her stuffed giraffe tucked under one arm, then collapsed onto his own bed. His last thought before unconsciousness claimed him was of cascade failures, race conditions, and the strange alchemy that transformed impossible problems into elegant solutions when people cared enough to try. He woke to sunlight streaming through his window and Zara bouncing on his bed. "Dad! Dad! Mrs. Chen said I get to visit your work today. Is it true? Can I really see where you've been?" Malik checked his phone, 8:30. He'd slept 5 hours, the most rest he'd gotten since this began. "Yeah, baby, you can visit, but you have to go to school first. I'll pick you up at lunch." "Is your work fancy? Do you have a big office?" "It's complicated. I'll show you. Now go brush your teeth and get ready for school." At Titan Core, the war room had transformed overnight from a crisis center into something resembling normalcy. The whiteboards had been photographed and erased. The excessive monitors had been returned to their original locations. But the energy remained. The team gathered at 10 o'clock with the exhausted satisfaction of people who'd achieved something extraordinary. Avery entered with her executive team, the CFO, COO, and several VPs Malik didn't recognize. The atmosphere shifted immediately, informal camaraderie replaced by professional presentation mode. "Malik," Avery said, "walk us through what you've accomplished." For the next 90 minutes, Malik presented the complete architecture redesign. He explained the original flaw, the cascade failure mechanism, the solution his team had implemented, and the additional vulnerabilities they'd discovered and resolved during integration testing. He showed the stress testing results, the performance improvements, the stability metrics that exceeded original specifications. The executives asked sharp questions. Malik answered with precision, never overselling, always honest about remaining risks and unknowns. When he finished, the room was silent. The CFO spoke first. "This is remarkable work, but I need to understand the risk profile. You're telling me we're launching with a completely redesigned integration layer, implemented in 72 hours. What's our confidence level?" 95%, Malik said without hesitation. "The 5% is reserved for unknowns. Edge cases we couldn't simulate, real-world usage patterns we didn't anticipate. But the architecture is fundamentally sound. We didn't just patch the problem. We solved it correctly." "And if you're wrong," the COO asked, "if we launch and it fails anyway?" "Then we roll back to the previous version, delay the launch, and accept the consequences." "But I'm not wrong. The team executed flawlessly. The code is clean. We're ready." Avery looked at her executive team. "Questions? Concerns?" The CFO shook his head. "If our head of R&D is confident and our consultant is confident, I'm comfortable with the risk." "Then we proceed with launch as scheduled," Avery said. "Dana, coordinate with operations on deployment. Malik, I need you available through launch day in case issues arise. After that," she paused. "After that, we'll talk about what comes next." The executives filed out, leaving Malik alone with Avery and Dana. "You did it," Dana said quietly. "You actually pulled off the impossible." "We did it. This team is exceptional. I just gave them direction." "Don't diminish what you accomplished," Avery said. "I've seen expensive consultants fail at simpler problems with more time. You saved this launch. You saved this company. And you did it with integrity and brilliance in equal measure." Before Malik could respond, Jessica appeared in the doorway. "Miss Sinclair, there's a young lady in the lobby asking for Malik Carter. She says she's his daughter and she has a picture to deliver." Malik checked his watch. Noon exactly. "That's Zara. I should have mentioned she was coming." "I invited her, remember?" Avery smiled. "Bring her up. I'd like to meet her." Malik rode the elevator down to the lobby, his heart doing something complicated in his chest. His daughter's world and his professional world were about to collide, and he wasn't certain how he felt about it. Zara stood in the gleaming lobby wearing her favorite purple dress and clutching a rolled-up piece of paper. When she saw Malik, her face lit up with pure joy. "Dad, this place is so fancy. Is this really where you work?" "Right now it is." He knelt down to her level. "You brought me the picture." I drew you working on computers. See? She unrolled the paper to reveal a crayon drawing of a stick figure surrounded by monitors displaying what appeared to be code. That's you being smart and saving the company. It's perfect. Thank you, baby. He hugged her tight, feeling the contrast between the corporate world around them and the small person who represented everything that actually mattered. Want to see where I've been working? Can I? Really? They took the elevator up, Zara bouncing with excitement. When the doors opened on the executive floor, her eyes went wide. Wow, it's like a spaceship. The war room still held the day shift team, wrapping up final documentation. When Malik entered with Zara, the engineers looked up with genuine warmth. This must be the famous Zara, Thomas said. Your dad's told us you're learning to code. Zara nodded solemnly. I can make stars in different colors, and I'm learning about loops. That's advanced stuff for third grade, Rachel said, impressed. Your dad's a good teacher. He's the best teacher in the whole world. Avery appeared in the doorway, and Malik saw his daughter assess this new person with the careful attention kids reserved for adults who might be important. You must be Zara, Avery said, crouching to the girl's level. I'm Avery. I run this company, and your dad has been helping us solve some very difficult problems. I know. He's really smart. He is. We're very lucky he was willing to help us. Zara considered this. Are you paying him lots of money? The room went silent. Malik felt his face heat, but Avery laughed with genuine delight. That's an excellent question. We haven't discussed payment yet, but I assure you your dad will be compensated very fairly for his work. Good. Because he's worth it. He knows everything about computers. I'm beginning to understand that. Avery stood, met Malik's eyes over Zara's head. Would you two join me for lunch? There's a good cafe on the third floor, and I'd love to hear more about Zara's coding projects. They ate together in the executive dining area, and Malik watched his daughter charm the CEO of a billion-dollar corporation with stories about her school, her friends, and the program she was designing to make virtual flowers grow across a screen. Avery listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed she understood both code and kids. Your dad mentioned you've been coming to the community center for his classes, Avery said. Do you like learning with the other students? They're nice. Some of them are really good at coding already. Marcus can make games. Destiny made a website about books. My dad says everyone has different talents, and coding is just about learning to think in a new way. Your dad is very wise. After lunch, Malik walked Zara back to Mrs. Chen, who'd agreed to keep her for the afternoon. As he settled her into the car, Zara looked up at him with serious eyes. Dad, are you going to work there forever now? At the fancy company? I don't know, baby. Maybe. We'll see what happens. I think you should. You look happy there. Different happy than when you teach us at the center, but still good happy, like you remember something you forgot. Out of the mouths of children, Malik thought, came uncomfortable truths. You're pretty smart yourself, you know that? I get it from you. She hugged him tight. Save the company, Dad. Show them how brilliant you are. As Malik drove back to Titancore, his phone rang. Unknown number. This is Malik Carter. Mr. Carter, this is Robert Chen from Vertex Systems. I understand you've been doing some consulting work for Titancore. I wanted to reach out because we're currently looking for senior architecture talent, and your name came up in some industry conversations. Would you be interested in discussing opportunities? Malik felt surreal laughter bubble up. 2 weeks ago, he couldn't buy a phone screen. Now competitors were calling him directly. I appreciate the interest, but I'm committed to seeing this current project through. If you want to follow up after launch, we can talk. Of course. I'll reach out next week. Congratulations on the Titancore work, by the way. Word's already circulating about what you pulled off. Very impressive. The call ended and Malik sat in his car for a moment, processing. The industry that had blackballed him was suddenly interested again. Not because he'd changed, but because he'd proven his value in a way they couldn't ignore. Mrs. Chen had been right. Something was shifting. The question was whether Malik was ready to let it. Launch day arrived with the weight of inevitability and terror in equal measure. Malik stood in the operations center at 5 o'clock in the morning, surrounded by monitors displaying real-time system metrics, deployment status, and client activation schedules. The first customers would come online at 6 a.m. Pacific, starting on the East Coast where business hours had already begun. By noon, the full weight of $40 million in advance orders would be testing every line of code his team had rebuilt. Dana arrived with coffee that actually smelled expensive, not the break room sludge they'd been surviving on. "Thought you could use the good stuff today. How are you feeling?" "Ask me in 12 hours. That confident? That realistic? We did everything right, built it clean, tested it thoroughly. But until real users hit real buttons in real-world chaos, we won't know for certain." The operations team filtered in over the next 30 minutes, taking positions at their workstations like soldiers manning battle stations. Avery appeared at 5:45, dressed in a sharp navy suit that projected confidence while her eyes revealed the same anxiety Malik felt churning in his gut. "Status?" she asked, though the monitors around them told the story clearly enough. "All systems green," the operations director reported. "Deployment pipeline ready. First client activations queued for 0600. Avery moved to stand beside Malik, her voice quiet enough that only he could hear. "I've launched products before, big ones, but this feels different." Because the stakes are different. You're not just launching a product, you're validating whether the company can deliver on its promises. No pressure, right? Despite the tension, Malik smiled. "We've got this. Your team is solid, the architecture is sound. Trust the work." At precisely 6 o'clock, the first client systems came online. Malik watched the metrics scroll across the monitors. Connection established, authentication successful, data streams initializing, response times held steady, memory allocation remained stable, no cascade failures, no race conditions, no catastrophic collapses. "Client 1 is fully operational," someone announced. "All performance indicators nominal." Over the next hour, clients activated in steady progression. Small businesses connecting their inventory systems, nonprofits integrating donor databases, mid-sized companies linking multiple data sources into unified dashboards. Each activation added load to the platform, stressing the integration layer in exactly the ways Malik's redesign was meant to handle. By 8 o'clock, they had 30 clients fully operational. By 9, 50. The platform performed not just adequately but beautifully, response times actually improving as the system's efficiency protocols optimized resource allocation across the growing user base. Thomas appeared at Malik's elbow, his expression somewhere between disbelief and triumph. "It's working. It's actually working better than we projected. The architecture scales well. That was always the goal." "No, you don't understand. We're seeing performance gains we didn't anticipate. The new allocation protocol isn't just preventing failures, it's actively optimizing resource usage in ways the original design never could. You built something better than what existed before the crisis." Malik studied the metrics, seeing what Thomas described. The redesign had fundamentally improved the platform's efficiency, reducing overhead while increasing throughput. It was the kind of elegant solution that only emerged when you understood a system at its deepest level. "We should document this," Dana said, appearing beside them. "The performance improvements need to be added to our technical specifications. Clients are going to want to understand why their systems are running faster than promised." By noon, they had cleared the halfway point. Over 100 clients fully operational, no significant issues, performance metrics that would make any engineer weep with satisfaction. The operations center's tension had transformed into cautious celebration, people allowing themselves to believe what the data clearly showed. Avery stepped to the center of the room and conversations quieted. "I want to thank everyone here for the extraordinary work of the past week. What you've accomplished, what Malik and his team accomplished, is nothing short of remarkable. We faced a crisis that could have destroyed this launch, destroyed client confidence, possibly destroyed this company. Instead, we're seeing the most successful product deployment in Titan Core's history." She paused, meeting Malik's eyes across the room. "I also want to acknowledge something important. A week ago, I made assumptions about a man based on his job title. I saw a janitor where I should have seen a brilliant engineer. I missed value that was right in front of me because I'd learned to equate worth with position. That was my failure, and it nearly cost us everything." The room had gone completely silent. Malik felt every eye turned toward him, but Avery continued. "Malik Carter saved this launch. But more than that, he reminded all of us that talent exists everywhere. Brilliance doesn't require the right credentials or the corner office. Sometimes the person who can solve your impossible problem is the one you've been overlooking every single day. She turned to address the full room. Moving forward, Titan Core is going to operate differently. We're going to look harder at people we've dismissed. We're going to create pathways for talent that doesn't fit traditional molds. And we're going to remember that the person emptying our trash bins might be capable of saving our company. The applause started slowly, then built to something that made Malik deeply uncomfortable. He wasn't built for public recognition, preferred the quiet satisfaction of problems solved to the spotlight of praise. But as he looked around the room, at Dana, at Thomas, at the engineers who'd trusted his vision and executed flawlessly, he recognized something important. This wasn't about him. This was about changing the fundamental assumption that worth and visibility were the same thing. By 3 o'clock, they'd reached full deployment. Every client activated, every system operational. The platform hummed with the steady efficiency of architecture designed correctly and implemented with precision. The crisis that had threatened everything was now just a memory, replaced by metrics that exceeded every projection. Malik stepped outside the operations center, needing air and space to process what had happened. He found himself on the observation deck, looking out over San Francisco in afternoon light. His phone buzzed, a text from Mrs. Chen with a photo of Zara at the community center, teaching a younger kid how to use the mouse properly. Teaching the next generation, the text read. She's so proud of her dad today. Another text arrived, this one from a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Carter, this is James Liu from TechCrunch. We're running a story on Titan Core's successful launch and the architect who saved it. Would you be available for an interview? Before Malik could process that, another message appeared. Malik, it's Sarah from Next Sys Days. Saw the news about Titan Core. Always knew you were brilliant. Coffee sometime? And another. This is recruiting for Chen Technologies. We'd love to discuss senior architect positions. The industry that had blackballed him 5 years ago suddenly wanted pieces of his attention, his time, his validation. Malik felt something between vindication and disgust. Where were these people when he was sending out 200 resumes? When he was choosing between feeding his daughter and paying medical bills? When he was relearning humility one empty trash bin at a time? Overwhelming, isn't it? Malik turned to find Avery approaching, 2 bottles of water in her hands. She offered him one. Everyone suddenly wants a piece of the success, she continued. It's how this industry works. You're only as valuable as your last win, and you just delivered a very public, very impressive win. I notice you're not asking for interviews. Because I don't need them. I know what happened here. The story that matters isn't the one tech blogs will write. It's the one about assumptions, second chances, and remembering what actually creates value. They stood in silence for a moment, looking out over the city. I need to talk to you about next steps, Avery said finally. We have decisions to make. I figured. I want to offer you a position, Senior Solutions Architect, reporting directly to Dana. Significant salary, full benefits, equity options. You'd lead major architectural decisions, mentor junior engineers, represent Titan Core at industry conferences. Everything you should have had 5 years ago before the industry decided to punish you for having integrity. Malik had known this was coming, had been preparing for it since yesterday. But hearing the offer stated plainly still sent complex emotions coursing through him. That's generous. It's what you're worth. Probably less than what you're worth, honestly. But it's what I can offer within our current compensation structure. And if I say no? Avery's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Then I'd be disappointed, but not surprised. You've built a life outside corporate structures. You've found purpose in teaching kids who need someone to believe in them. Coming back to this world means sacrificing some of that independence. You're not going to pressure me? Tell me I owe you for the opportunity? You don't owe me anything. If anything, I owe you. You saved my company and taught me something I desperately needed to learn. Whatever you decide, that debt stands. Before Malik could respond, his phone rang. The community center's director, Michael. Malik, I'm sorry to bother you, but we have a situation. The building inspector came by today. We've got code violations, electrical, structural, some serious issues. They're threatening to shut us down unless we bring everything up to standard within 30 days. Malik's chest tightened. How much are we talking about? 80,000 minimum. Probably closer to 100 once we get into the actual work. We don't have that kind of money. I've been running this center on grants and donations that barely cover basic operations. I don't know how we're going to... I'll figure something out, Malik said. Don't shut down anything yet. Let me make some calls. He ended the conversation and found Avery watching him with knowing eyes. The community center? She asked. Code violations. They need major repairs or they're getting shut down. $100,000 they don't have. And you were about to offer to pay for it yourself if I made that job offer, weren't you? Use your signing bonus or negotiate for higher compensation to cover it. Malik didn't deny it. Those kids need that space. They need somewhere to go after school that isn't the streets, somewhere that treats them like they matter. Avery pulled out her phone, typed something quickly, then looked up. What if I told you there was a third option? Not the corporate job, not going back to janitorial work and hoping for the best. Something different. I'm listening. Titan Core has been successful because we've focused on making enterprise tools accessible to mid-sized organizations. But we've completely neglected the community level, the nonprofits, the schools, the local centers that actually need technology the most but can't afford any of it. She pulled up something on her phone and showed him the screen. I've been thinking about this since I watched you teach those kids. What if we created a new division focused entirely on community technology access? Equipment donations, software licenses, training programs, infrastructure support. We'd partner with community centers, schools, libraries, places where technology can genuinely change lives. That's ambitious. It's necessary, and I want you to run it, Director of Community Innovation. You'd have a budget, a small team initially, complete autonomy over which programs to support and how. You could continue teaching at the community center. In fact, that would be part of your job description. But you'd also have resources to expand, more centers, more kids, real sustainable impact. Malik stared at her, trying to find the angle, the corporate manipulation hidden in the offer. Why would you do this? Community outreach doesn't drive revenue. It's a cost center. Because I'm tired of companies talking about social responsibility while doing the bare minimum. Because I watched you transform discarded equipment into opportunity. And because if Titan Core is going to claim we're democratizing technology, we should actually mean it. The board will never approve this. The board just watched you save a product launch worth $40 million. I have significant political capital right now, and I'm choosing to spend it on this. The initial budget will be modest, $2 million annually, but it's real money backing real commitment. $2 million. Equipment for dozens of centers, programs in multiple neighborhoods. Hundreds, maybe thousands of kids getting access to resources that could change their trajectories. I need to think about this, Malik said. Of course. Take a few days. But Malik, consider something. You've spent 5 years proving you don't need corporate validation to have worth. You've built something meaningful with almost no resources. Imagine what you could build with actual support behind you. That evening, Malik picked up Zara from Mrs. Chen and took her for ice cream, a rare treat they usually reserve for special occasions. They sat in a small shop near their apartment, and Zara chattered about her day while Malik tried to process the seismic shifts in his life. Dad? Zara's voice pulled him back to the present. You're doing that thing where you're here but not here. Sorry, baby. Just thinking about some decisions I need to make. About work? Yeah, about what comes next. Zara twirled her spoon through chocolate ice cream, her expression serious. Mrs. Chen says you used to have a really important job before Mom got sick. Is that true? Malik felt his throat tighten. They'd never fully discussed what had happened 5 years ago, what he'd lost, and why. Yeah, it's true. What happened to it? I had to make a choice between doing what was right and keeping my job. I chose what was right, and I lost the job. A lot of jobs, actually. Nobody wanted to hire me after that. Because you did the right thing? That's stupid. Sometimes the world is stupid. Sometimes people care more about protecting themselves than doing what's correct. Zara considered this, her 8-year-old mind working through adult complexities. But you're not sorry you did it, right? You'd do it again? I would. Every time. Good. That's what makes you a good person. Mrs. Chen says good people sometimes have harder lives, but they can sleep at night because they know who they are. Mrs. Chen is very wise. Dad? Zara set down her spoon. If you get your important job back, will we have to move? Will you be gone all the time like other kids' dads? There it was, the question underneath everything, the real cost of any decision he made. I don't know yet, baby, but I promise you this. Whatever I choose, you come first, always. We're a team, and teams stick together. Okay. She smiled, satisfied with that answer in the way only children could be. Can I have sprinkles? That night, after Zara fell asleep, Malik sat at their small kitchen table with his laptop open. The news coverage of Titan Core's successful launch had begun appearing online, and several articles mentioned the crisis architect who'd saved the deployment. His phone continued buzzing with messages from recruiters, former colleagues, industry contacts who'd ignored him for 5 years. He opened a new document and began writing down his options, trying to organize the chaos in his mind. Option 1. Accept Avery's community innovation position. Stable income, resources to expand his teaching programs, opportunity to create systematic change, but also corporate oversight, political navigation, the risk that good intentions would get buried under bureaucratic reality. Option 2. Take a traditional senior architect role, either at Titan Core or one of the other companies suddenly courting him. Financial security, professional rehabilitation, return to the career he'd trained for. But also long hours, high pressure, potential sacrifice of the teaching work that gave him purpose. Option 3. Stay exactly where he was. Continue janitorial work for stability, teach at the community center, maintain the independence he'd fought so hard to preserve, but also accept limited resources, limited reach, the knowledge that he could help more kids if he had institutional support. None of the options were perfect. All of them required sacrificing something important. His phone buzzed again. Dana. Saw the news coverage. You're famous now. How does it feel? Malik typed back. Uncomfortable. I preferred being invisible. Too late for that. The industry knows you're back. Question is whether you want to be. He stared at that message for a long time. Did he want to be back? The industry had shown him its true values 5 years ago. Profit over principle, reputation over reality, conformity over conscience. Coming back meant accepting that those values still dominated, even if individual people like Avery were trying to change things. But staying out meant accepting limits on what he could achieve, how many kids he could reach, how much opportunity he could create. Around midnight, Malik made his decision. He composed an email to Avery, his fingers moving with certainty even though his heart carried doubt. The next morning, he met Avery in her office, the city spread out behind her in morning light. She'd clearly been working early, her desk covered with papers and her computer showing multiple spreadsheets. I read your email, she said without preamble. You want to negotiate. I want to propose a hybrid approach. I'll take the Director of Community Innovation position, but with specific conditions. I'm listening. First, I maintain my teaching schedule at the Westside Community Center. Non-negotiable. That work continues regardless of corporate priorities. Second, the Community Technology Program operates with complete independence. I report to you on budget and outcomes, but program decisions are mine. Third, we establish a formal partnership where Titan Core commits to ongoing equipment donations, software licenses, and volunteer mentorship, not as charity, but as core business practice. Done, done, and done. What else? Fourth, I want the community center's building violations fixed immediately. Consider it part of my signing package. And fifth, I need flexibility to keep my daughter as my first priority. I'll work hard, deliver results, exceed expectations. But if Zara needs me, everything else waits. Avery smiled. You drive a harder bargain than most senior executives. Anything else? One more thing. The janitorial staff at Titan Core. I want to know their names, their backgrounds, their aspirations. I want Titan Core to create pathways for people in those positions to advance if they have skills we're not recognizing. And I want regular reviews to make sure we're not missing talent just because it comes in gray uniforms. That's not small ask. It's the right ask. You said you wanted to operate differently. This is what different looks like. Avery stood, extended her hand across the desk. Then we have a deal. Welcome to Titan Core, Director Carter. Try not to revolutionize the entire company in your first month. No promises. As Malik left her office, his phone buzzed with a message from Michael at the community center. Just got the most bizarre call from a construction company. They say Titan Core is covering all our building repairs, full renovation. Did you know about this? Malik smiled and typed back, "Just found out myself. Keep the programs running. We're going to be fine." That evening, Malik took Zara back to the community center for his regular teaching session. The kids were already assembled when he arrived, and their excitement was palpable. "Mr. Carter," Destiny called out, "we saw the news about you. You're famous." "I'm the same person I was last week. Now, who finished the assignment on conditional logic?" But Marcus, the oldest student, wasn't letting it go. "Come on, Mr. Carter. You saved a billion-dollar company. That's incredible. You went from teaching us to being this big deal." Malik set down his bag and looked around the classroom at faces that represented every assumption society made about worth, potential, and who deserved opportunity. "Want to know the truth?" he said. "Teaching you is the big deal. The company I helped? They'll forget about me the moment the next crisis hits. But what you're learning, what you're building, that's permanent. That changes your trajectory. And maybe someday, when you're the ones with skills and opportunities, you'll remember that someone believed in you when nobody else did. And maybe you'll do the same for the next group of kids who need someone to see their potential." He pulled up the lesson plan on his laptop. "Now, tonight we're talking about recursive functions. They're tricky, but they're powerful. Kind of like life. Sometimes you have to go through the same challenges over and over, but each time you understand them a little better until suddenly everything clicks into place." As he taught, Malik felt the pieces of his fractured life beginning to align. Not perfectly. Life was messier than code, more complex than algorithms, but with enough clarity to see the pattern emerging. He'd lost his career by refusing to compromise on principle. He'd rebuilt his sense of worth by teaching kids nobody else valued. And now, impossibly, he had the chance to combine both, to work at the corporate level while maintaining the community connection that gave his work meaning. After class, as students packed up their laptops, Destiny approached him quietly. "Mr. Carter, I've been thinking about what you said last week, about how people make assumptions about us based on where we're from. And I realized something." "What's that?" "You proved them wrong. Not just about you, but about all of us. If they were wrong about you, if the janitor could save their company, then maybe they're wrong about us too." Malik felt emotion rise in his chest, the kind that came from recognizing that sometimes, despite everything, the work mattered in ways you couldn't predict or control. "They are wrong about you," he said firmly. "Every single one of you. And my job, all of our jobs, is to prove it over and over until they can't ignore the truth anymore." Walking to his car later, Malik thought about cascade failures and race conditions, about systems designed to prevent problems before they manifested. He thought about his daughter sleeping peacefully while he worked impossible hours. He thought about Mrs. Chen's wisdom about recognizing when lives were about to change. Mostly, he thought about the strange journey from visibility to invisibility and back again, and how the most important work often happened in the spaces where nobody was watching. His phone buzzed one more time. "Avery, legal wants to finalize your contract tomorrow. Also, the board approved the community innovation budget. Congratulations. You're officially changing how this company operates." Malik typed back, "Just getting started." And for the first time in 5 years, he meant it. 3 months after launch, Malik stood in what used to be the Westside Community Center's cramped storage closet and was now a state-of-the-art computer lab. 15 workstations lined the walls, each equipped with new monitors, mechanical keyboards, and computers that didn't require prayer and patience to boot up. The transformation had been remarkable. New flooring, fresh paint in colors the kids had chosen themselves, proper lighting that didn't flicker during lessons, and walls reinforced to meet every building code the city could throw at them. "It's beautiful," Michael said beside him, the center's director still looking slightly shell-shocked by the changes. "I keep expecting to wake up and find out it was all a dream." "It's real. And it's just the beginning." Malik gestured to the expansion plan spread across a new desk. "Once we finish here, we move to the East Side Center, then Bayview, then across the bay to Oakland. 6 centers total in the first year. How did you convince them? Corporate types don't usually care about neighborhoods like ours. I didn't convince anyone. I showed them what was already happening and asked if they wanted to be part of making it bigger. Turns out some people actually do care. They just needed someone to show them how. The door burst open and Zara rushed in, still wearing her backpack from school, her face bright with excitement. Dad! Dad! I got picked! They picked me! Malik caught her as she launched herself at him. Picked you for what, baby? The citywide coding competition. Mrs. Anderson said my project was good enough to compete against middle schoolers. I'm the only third grader who made it. Pride surged through Malik's chest so powerfully it almost hurt. That's amazing. What project did you submit? The one where I made the virtual garden that grows based on user input, remember? You helped me debug the growth algorithm. I remember. You figured out most of it yourself, though. I just pointed you in the right direction. A voice from the doorway made them both turn. She definitely gets it from you. Avery stood there in jeans and a Titan Core hoodie, looking more relaxed than Malik had ever seen her. She'd taken to visiting the community centers once a week, sometimes officially for board presentations, but increasingly just to see the programs in action. Congratulations, Zara, Avery said warmly. A citywide competition is a big deal. Your dad must be very proud. He's always proud of me, even when I mess up my code and have to start over. Zara grinned up at Malik. He says mistakes are just learning in disguise. Smart dad. Avery's eyes met Malik's over Zara's head. Can I borrow him for a few minutes? We have some things to discuss. Zara released her death grip on Malik and skipped off to find her friends. Avery waited until she was out of earshot before speaking. The board meeting is tomorrow. They want a full presentation on the Community Innovation Division's first quarter results. I sent you the metrics last week. Engagement is up 40% across all programs. We've placed refurbished equipment in 12 locations. The volunteer mentorship program has 63 Titan Core employees participating. I know the numbers. They're excellent. But there's something else. Avery's expression shifted to something more complicated. Harrison Vance is going to be there. Malik felt his stomach tighten. Harrison Vance, former CEO of NextSys, the man whose pressure to approve faulty code had started Malik's exile from the industry, the man whose company had collapsed partly because of Malik's testimony. What's he doing at a Titan Core board meeting? He joined the board 2 months ago. Significant investment in the company, brings industry connections, all the usual justifications. I voted against it, but I was outvoted. And you're telling me this now because he's already making noise about the community program being a waste of resources. He's calling it charitable vanity that doesn't serve shareholder interests. Tomorrow, he's going to push for significant budget cuts or complete elimination of your division. Malik walked to the window overlooking the center's small playground where kids were shooting basketballs and laughing. Of course he is. Can't have the whistleblower actually succeeding at something meaningful. Bad for the narrative. Malik, I need you to present tomorrow. Show the board what you've built. Make them understand the value beyond the spreadsheet numbers. You want me in the same room with the man who destroyed my career, who pressured engineers to approve dangerous code and then blackballed anyone who objected? I want you to show him that he failed, that destroying your career didn't destroy you, that everything he represents, short-term profits over long-term value, quarterly results over human impact, is exactly what Titan Core is choosing not to be. Malik turned back to her. And if the board sides with him anyway? Then we fight. But I don't think they will. Not if you show them what I've seen these past 3 months. That evening, Malik worked late preparing his presentation while Zara did homework at a desk in his new office. It was modest by executive standards, 12th floor, decent view, furniture that didn't creak, but it represented something profound. A space where his work was valued, where his presence was expected, where he belonged. Dad? Zara's voice interrupted his thoughts. What's wrong? You've been staring at that slide for 10 minutes. Just thinking about tomorrow. I have to present to the company's board of directors. Are you nervous? A little. You shouldn't be. You're really good at explaining things. You make complicated stuff make sense. She returned to her math homework, complete confidence in her father's abilities radiating from every line of her small body. Malik's phone buzzed. Dana, Heard about tomorrow's board meeting. Vance is going to come at you hard. Want me to prep some technical backup in case he tries to undermine your credibility? He typed back, appreciate it, but I'm not defending my credibility. I'm presenting the work. The work speaks for itself. Brave. Possibly stupid, but brave. Good luck. At home that night, after Zara fell asleep, Malik found himself pulling out an old box from the back of his closet. Inside were remnants of his previous life. Industry awards, letters of recommendation that had meant something before they became worthless, photos from Nexus company events when he'd still believed hard work and integrity were sufficient for success. At the bottom of the box, he found a handwritten note from Sarah, his wife, written during her final weeks. Malik, whatever happens next, remember, you did the right thing. Standing up for what's correct always costs something, but living with yourself costs more if you don't. I'm so proud of the man you are. Make sure Zara knows her father is someone who can't be bought or broken. All my love, S. Malik read it 3 times, feeling her presence in the words, her absolute certainty in his character. She died believing he'd made the right choice, even knowing what it would cost their family. Could he honor that by backing down now? He put the note back carefully and closed the box. Tomorrow, he'd face the man who'd tried to break him. And he'd do it the only way Sarah would have respected, by standing firmly in the truth of what he'd built and refusing to apologize for it. The Titan Core boardroom occupied the entire 45th floor, all glass walls and commanding views. Malik arrived 30 minutes early, wearing the one good suit he owned, purchased for Nexus presentations a lifetime ago, still fitting despite everything that had changed. He set up his presentation materials and practiced his opening, trying to steady nerves that felt like live wires. Board members filtered in gradually, each carrying the weight of fiduciary responsibility and strategic oversight. Malik recognized some from news coverage, venture capitalists, former tech executives, one prominent academic. And then Harrison Vance entered. He looked older than Malik remembered. His hair more gray than brown now, but he carried the same aggressive confidence that had bulldozed over safety concerns and engineering objections 5 years ago. His eyes found Malik immediately, and something cold flickered across his face before professional neutrality reasserted itself. Malik Carter, Vance said, his tone precisely calibrated between acknowledgement and dismissal. Quite a journey from testifying against me to working for Titan Core. Life takes interesting turns. It does, Malik replied evenly, especially when you refuse to compromise on what matters. Indeed. I look forward to your presentation. I'm very curious about what matters these days. Avery entered then, and the tension broke as people took their seats. She positioned herself at the head of the table, directly across from Vance in a configuration that made the power dynamics clear. Thank you all for being here, she began. Today, we're reviewing the Community Innovation Division's first quarter performance. As you know, this program represents a strategic pivot toward community engagement and technology accessibility. Malik Carter, our Director of Community Innovation, will present the results. Malik stood, activated his presentation, and took a breath. The first slide showed a simple before and after photo. The Westside Center's old storage closet versus the new computer lab. 3 months ago, this was how kids in the Westside neighborhood accessed technology. A storage closet with 5 outdated computers, 2 of which worked intermittently. Today, it's a fully equipped computer lab serving 43 students regularly. But this presentation isn't about facilities. It's about what happens when you invest in potential instead of dismissing it. He clicked to the next slide showing engagement metrics. Since launch, the Community Innovation Division has deployed 317 refurbished computers to 12 community centers across the Bay Area. We've trained 186 students in foundational coding skills. 63 Titan Core employees volunteer as mentors, spending an average of 3 hours per week teaching and supporting these programs. A board member raised her hand. That's impressive scale for 3 months, but what's the business justification? How does this drive shareholder value? I'll get to ROI, Malik said. But first, context. The students in these programs come from neighborhoods with minimal technology access. Most don't have computers at home. Their schools lack resources for advanced STEM education. Without intervention, they're systematically excluded from the tech industry before they're old enough to understand what they're missing. He clicked to a new slide showing student demographics and outcomes. Of the 186 students we've trained, 34 have already been accepted into advanced placement computer science courses at their schools. 12 have been recruited into summer internship programs at tech companies, including 2 here at Titancore. 5 have created applications good enough to enter citywide competitions, including my daughter, who's 8. Another click brought up financial analysis. Now, the business case. We've spent $400,000 this quarter on equipment, facilities, and program administration. That's 20% of our annual budget. In return, Titancore has received significant positive press coverage, including features in the Chronicle, TechCrunch, and Forbes. Brand sentiment has increased 12 points in community surveys. Employee satisfaction among program volunteers is 15% higher than company average, and retention in those groups is notably better. Vance leaned forward. Those are nice qualitative benefits, but they don't justify the cost. $400,000 is significant capital that could be invested in R&D, sales expansion, or product development, things that actually generate revenue. You're right that it doesn't generate immediate revenue, Malik acknowledged, but it does something more valuable long term. It builds the future workforce. 10 years from now, some of these kids will be the engineers designing breakthrough products. They'll be the leaders solving problems we haven't imagined yet, and they'll remember that Titancore gave them opportunities when nobody else would. That's a very idealistic vision, Vance said, his tone suggesting idealism was a character flaw. But it's not a business strategy. It's charity dressed up as corporate responsibility. Is it? Malik clicked to a new slide showing industry diversity statistics. The tech industry has a chronic talent shortage, especially for underrepresented groups. We spend millions recruiting from the same elite universities, fighting over the same narrow pool of candidates. Meanwhile, we ignore massive reservoirs of potential in communities we've decided don't matter. That's not just inequitable, it's strategically stupid. He could feel the board's attention sharpen. The Community Innovation Division isn't charity, it's talent development with a longer time horizon than quarterly earnings. We're identifying and cultivating brilliant young people who would otherwise never enter this industry. In 5, 10, 15 years, some of them will work here. Some will start companies that partner with us or compete with us. Either way, we benefit from having invested in their development. A different board member spoke up. You're asking us to take it on faith that these programs will produce returns eventually. That's a hard sell. I'm not asking for faith. I'm asking you to look at the evidence. Malik pulled up his final slide. A split screen showing the Nexus building, now abandoned, and Titancore's headquarters. 5 years ago, I worked for a company that prioritized short-term profits over everything else. Safety concerns, engineering integrity, long-term sustainability, all sacrificed for quarterly numbers. That company collapsed. People went to prison. Shareholders lost everything. He looked directly at Vance. I testified against that company because they were willing to approve dangerous code to meet deadlines and please investors. I lost my career for it, spent 5 years working as a janitor, blackballed by an industry that punished integrity. But here's what I learned emptying trash bins in this very building. Worth and position aren't the same thing. The person you dismiss might be exactly who you need. The investment that doesn't show immediate returns might be the one that saves you. The room was completely silent. Malik continued, his voice steady. 3 months ago, Avery Sinclair could have fired me when she discovered I was accessing company systems. Instead, she asked why. She followed me to a community center and saw kids learning with discarded equipment. She recognized that maybe, just maybe, someone teaching teenagers to code with garbage had something valuable to offer. That recognition saved Titancore's product launch. My architectural redesign generated $40 million in revenue. If she'd made the obvious choice, protect the company, eliminate the risk, fire the janitor, none of that happens. He turned back to the full board. The Community Innovation Division operates on the same principle. We're choosing to see value where others see cost, potential where others see demographics, investment where others see charity. And I'm telling you, based on everything I've learned about what actually creates lasting success, this approach works. Not immediately. Not in ways that show up on next quarter's earnings report, but in ways that build something sustainable. Vance's expression had hardened into something approaching anger. This is a very compelling story, Mr. Carter, very emotional, But business isn't about stories, it's about numbers, and your numbers don't justify the investment. With respect, Mr. Vance, you're wrong about what business is about. Business is exactly about stories, about what we value, who we choose to see, what we're building toward. The numbers follow from those choices. Nexus prioritized quarterly earnings over safety. The numbers looked great right up until federal prosecutors shut everything down. Titan Core is choosing a different story, one where we measure success by more than immediate profit. That's naive idealism from someone who clearly doesn't understand fiduciary responsibility. Malik felt anger rise, but kept his voice level. I understand it perfectly. I also understand that sometimes the most responsible thing you can do is invest in what matters even when the returns aren't immediate. These programs matter. These kids matter. And if this board decides that 43 students learning to code is too expensive, that's a choice you'll have to live with. But don't pretend it's about business. It's about values. It's about whether you think opportunity should be reserved for people who already have advantages or if we're willing to extend it to people who need it most. Avery spoke before Vance could respond. I think we've heard enough for initial discussion. Malik, thank you for a thorough presentation. Board members, let's take a 30-minute recess and reconvene for decision. As the room emptied, Malik gathered his materials with shaking hands. He'd said everything he needed to say, held nothing back, but he'd also potentially destroyed the program by being too direct, too confrontational with someone who had significant board influence. Dana found him in the hallway. That was either brilliant or career suicide, possibly both. I couldn't lie about what this program is. If they want to kill it, they'll kill it, but they'll do it knowing exactly what they're destroying. Vance looked like he wanted to strangle you. He tried to break me once before. Didn't take then. Won't take now. The 30 minutes felt like 30 hours. Malik paced the hallway, returned emails without reading them, and tried not to think about having to tell the kids that the programs were ending because corporate boards didn't see them as worth the investment. Finally, Jessica appeared. They're ready for you. The board had reconvened, their expressions professionally neutral in that way that revealed nothing. Avery nodded for Malik to sit. We've discussed the Community Innovation Division's performance and future, she began. Board members had concerns about cost justification, return on investment, and strategic alignment. There was significant debate about whether to continue the program, modify its scope, or discontinue it entirely. Malik braced himself for the axe to fall. After thorough discussion and a formal vote, Avery continued, her expression carefully controlled, the board has decided to not only continue the Community Innovation Division, but to expand its budget to $5 million annually and elevate it to a core strategic initiative of Titan Core. Malik felt the words hit him like physical force. What? Avery smiled, the first genuine emotion breaking through her professional facade. The vote was 9-3 in favor of expansion. The board recognizes that community technology access aligns with Titan Core's mission and provides long-term strategic value. You'll have authorization to expand to 20 community centers in the first year, develop a formal internship pipeline, and establish partnerships with local schools. I don't know what to say. One of the board members who'd questioned him earlier spoke up. Your presentation was compelling, Mr. Carter, but more than that, the work speaks for itself. We reviewed the metrics, the press coverage, the employee engagement data. This program is generating value in ways that matter. We'd be foolish to kill something that's working. Though we do expect continued quarterly reporting and measurable outcomes, another member added. Expansion comes with accountability. Of course. I'll deliver both. Vance hadn't spoken, his face carefully neutral, but his eyes burning with something that looked like humiliation mixed with rage. As the meeting concluded and board members filed out, he approached Malik directly. Congratulations, he said, the word acid on his tongue. You've convinced them to waste shareholder money on feel-good programs that won't matter in 5 years. With respect, Mr. Vance, you don't get to lecture me on what matters. Your company collapsed because you prioritized appearance over substance. These programs prioritize substance. Time will prove which approach was correct. Time proved I was wrong at Nexus. That doesn't mean you're right here. It just means you found a CEO naive enough to indulge your crusade. Malik met his eyes steadily. You tried to break me once. Thought destroying my career would make me disappear. But I didn't disappear. I found purpose you can't touch, built something you can't diminish, and proved that worth isn't determined by people like you. That must be difficult to accept. Vance's jaw tightened. We'll see how long your idealism lasts when the board demands actual returns. Enjoy your victory, Mr. Carter. They rarely last as long as you expect. He walked away, and Malik felt something release in his chest. Not triumph, exactly, but resolution. The man who'd haunted his worst moments for 5 years had just been proven irrelevant. Whatever power Vance had held over Malik's sense of self-worth had evaporated in the face of work that mattered more than old grudges. Avery approached as Malik stood alone in the empty boardroom. You handled that well, both the presentation and Vance. I just told the truth. Apparently that was enough. It was more than enough. It was exactly what the board needed to hear. Several members told me privately that your passion reminded them why they got into this industry in the first place, before it became just about stock prices and market dominance. So what happens now? Now you build the program you envisioned. 20 centers, full partnerships, real sustainable impact. You've got the budget, the authorization, and the board's support. The hard part is living up to what you promised. Malik smiled. I've been doing hard parts for 5 years. This will be the fun kind of hard. That evening, Malik arrived at the Westside Community Center to teach his regular class. The kids were already assembled, and Destiny met him at the door with barely contained excitement. Mr. Carter, we heard. Mrs. Anderson told us about the board meeting. You got the money. The program is expanding. News travels fast. This is the best thing ever. Does this mean more computers? More classes? It means a lot of things. But right now it means we have class to teach. Everyone logged in? The session that night felt different. The kids asked sharper questions, engaged more deeply, pushed themselves harder. They understood, perhaps for the first time fully, that what they were learning wasn't just theoretical. It was a pathway, a real opportunity to change their trajectories. After class, as students packed up, Marcus approached Malik quietly. Mr. Carter, can I ask you something? Of course. You used to have a big important job, right? Before you worked here? I did. And you lost it because you did the right thing? That's one way to describe it, yes. Marcus was quiet for a moment, choosing words carefully. My older brother, he's always telling me to be practical. Don't rock the boat. Don't stand up for things if it costs you. Just keep your head down and survive. But you didn't do that. You stood up even when it cost you everything. And now you've got your important job back. Plus, you're still here teaching us, like you didn't have to choose between doing good and doing well. You found a way to do both. Malik felt his throat tighten. It took time, and a lot of circumstances had to align. I won't pretend it was easy or guaranteed. But you kept going, even when you were just a janitor. No offense, none taken. You still showed up here every week, still taught us like we mattered. That's what I want to remember. That doing right might cost you in the short term, but if you stick with it, eventually the world catches up. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. The important thing is that you don't let the world determine your worth. You know who you are regardless of what job title you hold or what people assume about you. Marcus nodded slowly. I get it. Thanks, Mr. Carter, for everything. As Malik drove home that night, his phone buzzed with a text from Avery. Emergency meeting tomorrow. Don't panic. It's good news. Conference room B at 9 a.m. He responded, define good news in a way that doesn't make me panic. Just trust me. Bring Zara if you want. She'll enjoy this. The next morning, Malik and Zara entered conference room B to find it packed with people. Dana, Thomas, Rachel, the entire engineering team that had saved the launch, several board members, and a camera crew. Avery stood at the front beside a display covered with a cloth. What's all this? Malik asked, confused. This, Avery said, pulling the cloth away to reveal a plaque, is the official naming of Titan Core's new R&D wing, the Carter Innovation Center, dedicated to the principle that brilliance exists everywhere, and our job is to recognize it, support it, and give it space to flourish. Malik stared at the plaque, his name etched in metal, representing something he'd never imagined possible 3 months ago. We're also establishing the Carter Fellowship, Avery continued. a program that will bring students from community centers into Titan Core for paid internships, mentorship, and real work experience. The first cohort starts this summer, 20 students, including several from Westside. Zara tugged on Malik's sleeve. Dad, there's your name. They named a building after you. I see it, baby. Is this what happens when you're really good at your job? They put your name on buildings? Despite the emotion choking him, Malik laughed. Sometimes, if you're very lucky. Dana approached with a grin. Couldn't let you have all the quiet dignity. Had to make a big show of it. Corporate types, you know how we are. This is too much, Malik said to Avery. It's exactly enough. You changed how this company operates, how we think about value, about potential, about who deserves opportunity. That merits recognition. Over the next hour, people shared stories about how the community programs had impacted them, their mentees, the students they'd worked with. The camera crew documented everything for a company video about the initiative's expansion. Through it all, Malik felt the surreal disconnect between the person he'd been 3 months ago, invisible, dismissed, working night shifts in a gray uniform, and the person he apparently was now. But more than recognition or validation, what resonated was the work itself. 20 centers expanding to 50, 100 students becoming thousands. A program that started with discarded computers and stubborn determination now had institutional backing and resources to create systematic change. That afternoon, Malik took Zara to the park near their apartment, the same park where they'd spent countless hours when money was too tight for anything else. They sat on their usual bench and Zara chattered about the ceremony, the camera crew, how cool it was that her dad had a building named after him. Dad? She said eventually, her tone shifting to something more serious. Are you happy now? Like, really happy? Malik considered the question. Was he happy? He had his career back, professional recognition, resources to expand work he cared about. He had financial security, respect, opportunities multiplying faster than he could track them. But what he felt went deeper than happiness. It was something closer to wholeness. The fragmented pieces of his life, the engineer, the father, the teacher, the man who'd refused to compromise on principle, had finally aligned into something coherent. Yeah, baby, I'm really happy. But you know what makes me happiest? What? That through everything that happened, losing my job, working as a janitor, struggling to make ends meet, I never stopped being your dad, never stopped showing up for you. Because at the end of the day, that's the part that matters most. Everything else is just details. Zara leaned against his shoulder. I'm glad you're happy. You deserve it. You're the best dad and the smartest person, and now everyone else knows it too. Everyone knowing it isn't what makes it true. It was true when I was emptying trash bins. It's just more visible now. That's very wise, Dad. You should put that in one of your presentations. Malik laughed and hugged her close, this fierce little person who'd been his anchor through the worst years and his joy through all of them. That evening, back at their apartment, Malik sat at his kitchen table with his laptop open. He was drafting the expansion plan for the Community Innovation Division, detailed budgets, partnership frameworks, curriculum development, hiring plans for the team he'd need to build. It was exciting work, the kind that energized rather than exhausted him. His phone buzzed with an email from an address he didn't recognize. The subject line read, "From a former Nexus colleague." Malik opened it carefully, half expecting another recruiter pitch or industry congratulations. Instead, he found something more meaningful. Malik, you probably don't remember me. I was a junior engineer at Nexus when everything collapsed. I watched you testify, watched them destroy your career for doing what was right. At the time, I was too scared to support you publicly, too worried about my own job security. I've regretted that silence for 5 years. Seeing what you've built now, what you're doing for these kids, it makes me realize I had it backward. Safety isn't keeping your head down. Safety is knowing who you are regardless of what jobs you hold or what titles people give you. Thank you for that lesson, even if it took me 5 years to learn it. James Chen. Malik read it twice, feeling something complicated in his chest. He'd spent so long thinking about what he'd lost at Nexus, the career, the respect, the financial security. But he'd never considered that maybe his choice had mattered to people he didn't even know, that standing firm might have planted seeds in others that took time to grow. He typed a response. James, I remember you. You asked good questions during code reviews and always pushed for cleaner architecture. I never expected support from colleagues at Nexus. The system made that impossible. But I appreciate you telling me this. What you're calling safety, I'd call integrity. Knowing who you are when nobody's watching, that's the skill that matters. Thanks for reaching out. Malik. A month later, the expanded community innovation programs launched across the Bay Area. Malik spent his days traveling between centers, meeting students, training new mentors, building partnerships with schools and local organizations. The work was intense but energizing, each day confirming that he'd made the right choice. He'd hired a small team to help manage the expansion. Former educators, community organizers, one engineer from Titan Core who'd fallen in love with teaching after volunteering. Together, they built something that felt less like a corporate initiative and more like a movement. The West Side Center remained his home base, the place he taught every Tuesday and Thursday evening, regardless of his schedule. The kids there had become something beyond students. They were proof that potential existed everywhere, and assumptions about worth were usually wrong. One evening, after a particularly intense session on object-oriented programming, Destiny approached him with her laptop open to an email. "Mr. Carter, look at this. I got accepted into the summer fellowship program at Titan Core. They want me to work on actual projects." Malik felt pride surge through him. "That's incredible, Destiny. You earned this. I couldn't have done it without you, without this program. A year ago, I didn't even know what coding was. Now I'm going to be working at a real tech company. That's crazy." "It's not crazy. It's what happens when someone sees your potential and gives you the tools to develop it. Now you get to do the same for someone else someday." "I will," she said firmly. "I promise I will." As summer approached, the first Carter Fellowship cohort assembled at Titan Core for orientation. 20 students from community centers across the city, ranging from 13 to 17, all nervous and excited and uncertain they belonged in this gleaming corporate tower. Malik welcomed them in the same conference room where he'd presented to the board months earlier. "I know this feels intimidating," he began. "You're probably wondering if you deserve to be here, if you're good enough, if people will take you seriously. I get it. 3 months ago, I was working as a janitor in this building. People made assumptions about what I was capable of based on my job title. They were wrong." He gestured around the room. "The same applies to you. People will make assumptions based on where you're from, what schools you attend, what advantages you haven't had. Those assumptions are wrong. You're here because you demonstrated talent, drive, and potential. What you do with this opportunity is up to you, but know this: you belong here, not despite your circumstances, but because of what you've built in spite of them." The summer flew by in a blur of mentorship, project work, and watching students discover what they were capable of when given real opportunities. Several of the fellows produced work good enough to present at the company's quarterly review. 2 were offered positions on student advisory boards for product development. All of them transformed from uncertain teenagers into confident young people who understood their own worth. In August, Titan Core held a fellowship completion ceremony. Parents and family members filled the auditorium as students presented their summer projects. Malik watched from the side as Destiny demonstrated an application she'd built to help community centers track and coordinate volunteer resources. Her presentation was polished, confident, brilliant. Avery appeared beside him. "You did this. All of it." "They did it. I just opened the door." "Don't diminish what you built. These kids had talent before, but they didn't have opportunity. You created the bridge. We created it. You made space for the program, funded it, backed it when the board pushed back." "Partnership," Avery said. "Turns out, when you combine institutional resources with genuine purpose, you can build something neither could achieve alone." After the ceremony, as families celebrated and students made plans to stay connected, Zara found Malik in the crowd. "Dad, Destiny's mom wants to meet you. She keeps crying and saying thank you." Malik allowed himself to be pulled across the room to where a woman who looked exhausted but radiant stood with Destiny. "Mr. Carter," she said, gripping his hand tightly. "I don't have words. My daughter, she's always been smart, but nobody saw it. Her school didn't have resources. I work 2 jobs, can't afford tutors or enrichment programs. I watched her getting lost in the system and didn't know how to help her. Then she found your program. And now this. Summer fellowship, college recommendations, a path forward. You gave her that. Your daughter gave herself that. I just provided tools. She did the work. No, Destiny's mother said firmly. You saw her. That's what matters. Somebody finally saw her potential and treated it like it mattered. That changes everything. Walking to his car later, Malik reflected on those words. Being seen. It sounded simple, but it was revolutionary. How many brilliant people were invisible because they didn't fit expected patterns? How much potential was wasted because opportunity was treated as scarce rather than something that expanded when shared? 6 months after the board meeting, Malik sat in his office reviewing expansion proposals. The Community Innovation Division now served 52 centers across the Bay Area. They'd trained over 800 students. The fellowship program had expanded to 40 participants. Corporate volunteers numbered in the hundreds. The work had grown beyond what he'd imagined possible. His phone rang. Unknown number, but he answered anyway. Mr. Carter, this is Principal Anderson from Mission High School. I'm calling because we have a situation I'm hoping you can help with. What kind of situation? We have a student, brilliant kid, incredible coding talent, but he's failing most of his other classes, got into some trouble, facing possible expulsion. His counselor showed me some of the programs he's written. They're sophisticated enough that I can't even understand them. I wondered if you might talk to him, see if there's a way to channel that talent before we lose him entirely. Malik felt recognition click into place. How many times had this story played out? Kid with talent but no support system, no pathway, no one who understood that intelligence manifests in different ways. Send me his information. I'll reach out today. Thank you. I think you might be the only person who can get through to him. After hanging up, Malik stared at the contact information the principal had sent. Deshaun Williams, age 15, living in the Tenderloin, at risk by every institutional metric, but also potentially exactly the kind of student who could flourish given the right opportunity. He composed an email. Deshaun, Principal Anderson gave me your name. I run technology programs for students interested in coding. I'd like to meet and see what you're working on. No judgment, no pressure, just interested in what you're building. Let me know if you're free this week. Malik Carter. The response came 30 minutes later. You're the guy from the news, the janitor who saved the company. Why would you want to meet with me? Malik smiled and typed back. Because 5 years ago, I was a guy nobody wanted to hire. Worked night shifts cleaning buildings while raising my daughter and teaching kids to code on weekends. I know what it's like when people make assumptions about your worth based on circumstances. I also know that talent shows up in unexpected places. You interested or not? Yeah, I'm interested. They met 2 days later at a coffee shop in the Tenderloin. Deshaun was lanky, guarded, wearing clothes that had seen too many washes and carrying a laptop held together with duct tape. But when Malik asked to see his code, the kid's whole demeanor changed. He pulled up programs that demonstrated sophisticated understanding of algorithms, data structures, and system architecture, work that would impress college-level instructors. This is exceptional, Malik said honestly. Who taught you? YouTube, mostly, some online courses. It makes sense to me. Way more than school stuff. What happens if you get expelled? Deshaun's expression closed off. Don't know, probably nothing good. But I can't keep pretending to care about classes that don't matter. Reading Shakespeare while I'm trying to figure out how to eat dinner seems stupid. You're not wrong that the system fails students like you. But getting expelled limits your options, makes it harder to build the life you want. So what am I supposed to do? Fake it? Pretend I care about memorizing dates and writing essays about books I don't understand? No. I'm suggesting you channel this talent into something that creates opportunity. Get through high school, yeah, but also build a portfolio that proves what you're capable of. Apply for the fellowship program. Work on real projects. Show people what you can do when given the right environment. Deshaun was quiet, his fingers drumming on his laptop. Why do you care? You don't know me. Because somebody saw potential in me when I was invisible. Because I remember what it feels like to be dismissed. And because this, Malik gestured to Deshaun's laptop. This is too valuable to waste. You're too valuable to waste. Over the next few months, Malik worked with Deshaun to stabilize his school situation while developing his coding skills. The kid was stubborn, defensive, carried wounds from years of systemic failure. But he was also brilliant, driven, and hungry for someone to believe in him. By spring, Deshaun had been accepted into the fellowship program and was working on a project to help food banks optimize distribution routes. His school situation improved. His attendance stabilized. He started talking about college as something possible rather than impossible. "You know what changed?" Deshaun asked during one of their weekly check-ins. "It wasn't just the coding stuff. It was you treating me like I mattered before I proved I deserved it. Most people, they want you to earn their respect first. You just gave it. That's different." Malik understood. Respect given freely before it was earned created space for people to become who they were capable of being. Respect withheld until proven demanded, people succeed under the weight of doubt. As the first anniversary of the Community Innovation Division approached, Titan Core planned a celebration event. Media coverage, community leaders, students, and families from every center. Avery asked Malik to give the keynote address. The evening of the event, the Titan Core auditorium filled with people whose lives had intersected with the program in various ways. Malik stood backstage, more nervous than he'd been for the board presentation. This audience mattered more. These were the people the work was actually for. Zara found him backstage, wearing a dress she'd picked out herself. "You're going to be great, Dad. Just tell them what you always tell me, that everybody deserves somebody who believes in them." "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from the best." Malik took the stage to applause, looking out over faces that represented every assumption he'd spent years challenging. He saw his students, beaming with pride. He saw Avery and the Titan Core team who'd made the work possible. He saw community leaders, parents, teachers who'd partnered in the effort. "A year ago," he began, "I was a janitor working night shifts at Titan Core. I emptied trash, mopped floors, and maintained the invisible infrastructure that kept a corporate tower running. Most people didn't see me. Those who did made assumptions about my capabilities based on my job title. They assumed janitor meant limited, less than, not capable of more." He paused, letting that sink in. "They were wrong. But here's the thing. I was wrong too. I'd accepted invisibility as the price of my choices. I'd convinced myself that teaching a handful of kids in a storage closet was the limit of what I could achieve. That's what happens when the world tells you you're worthless often enough. You start believing it." Movement in the audience as people leaned forward, engaged. Then something changed. Avery Sinclair, Titan Core's CEO, could have fired me when she discovered I was accessing company systems. Instead, she asked why. She followed me to a community center and saw kids learning with discarded equipment. She recognized that maybe, just maybe, the janitor had something valuable to offer. That recognition changed everything. Malik gestured to the students sitting in the front rows. "This year, we've served 800 students across 52 community centers. We've provided equipment, training, mentorship, and opportunities to young people the system had written off. But the program isn't about charity. It's about recognition. It's about seeing potential where others see problems, about extending opportunity to people who need it most, rather than reserving it for those who already have advantages." He clicked to a slide showing student outcomes, college acceptances, internships, applications developed, competitions won. These metrics are impressive, but they don't capture what actually matters. What matters is that 800 young people now understand their worth isn't determined by their zip code, their school's resources, or anyone's assumptions about their potential. They know that brilliance exists everywhere, and their job is to develop it regardless of who validates them. Another slide, showing Deshaun presenting his food bank project. This is Deshaun Williams. 6 months ago, he was facing expulsion. Today, he's designing systems that help feed hungry families. He's been accepted into UC Berkeley's computer science program with a full scholarship. That transformation didn't happen because he changed who he fundamentally was. It happened because somebody saw him and treated that vision as truth rather than potential. Malik's voice strengthened. "I'm standing here tonight because Avery chose recognition over dismissal, because a team of engineers trusted a janitor's architectural vision, because a board decided community investment mattered more than quarterly optics. But mostly, I'm standing here because 800 students chose to believe in their own potential even when everything told them not to. That's the work. That's what we're celebrating. Not programs or metrics, but the fundamental act of seeing people and treating them as valuable before they prove they deserve it. The applause started slowly, then built to something that felt like validation not of him, but of the work itself, of every student and mentor and community partner who'd chosen to believe that opportunity should be accessible rather than exclusive. After the speeches and presentations, after the celebration wound down and families headed home, Malik found himself alone in the auditorium with Avery. "You did it," she said quietly. "Built exactly what you promised. Changed how we operate at a fundamental level. We did it. This doesn't happen without your support." "Partnership," she said, echoing the word from months earlier. "Question is, what's next? The program is established, running smoothly. You could maintain at this level, or you could keep expanding." Malik smiled. "You know I'm going to keep expanding." "I figured, just wanted to hear you say it." They walked out together into the San Francisco night, the city spread before them in lights and possibility. Malik thought about the journey from invisibility to recognition, from desperation to purpose, from broken to whole. He thought about his daughter asleep at home, about students learning in community centers across the city, about all the potential waiting to be recognized and supported. Mostly, he thought about worth, how it existed independent of position, how it persisted through crisis, how it multiplied when shared rather than hoarded. The industry had tried to break him by taking away his job, his reputation, his visibility, but they'd failed to understand something crucial. You couldn't break someone who'd found worth beyond anyone's ability to diminish it. You couldn't destroy someone who'd learned that value existed in teaching kids others ignored, in transforming what others discarded, in showing up every day to work that mattered regardless of who noticed. Malik Carter had been invisible, then essential, then elevated, but through all of it, his worth had remained constant. The only thing that changed was whether other people chose to see it. And now, finally, they were looking.